All right, welcome to CAPECAST. How's everybody doing tonight? Brandon?
Good, Ryan. How are you doing?
Doing good? I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I just scarfed down some sashimi, literally,
Nice.
in like 2 minutes. Chris, Britt, how's it going?
Great.
Good.
Happy Easter.
Good.
Glad to be here again.
Yeah, happy Easter. Happy Easter. I see you've got some decorations there, Britt, tonight.
Oh yeah, we got the shield. We broke it out. We broke it out for the Falcon and Winter Soldier talk.
What is
his
this?
shirt and his background?
Yeah, we're doing.
It's catching me off guard. You not having a hat tonight. Usually a hat guy.
I know, but I actually had to do my hair for pictures and whatnot with the family, so
Take advantage
that way. Yeah,
like I've shown everybody the beard. Now I got to show everybody the full head of hair.
Yeah,
got it. All right. Well, tonight we definitely got a full slate. We haven't had the chance to sit down and talk with these guys on the show about Zack Snyder's Justice League, so we're going to do that. We also are going to dig into the first 3 episodes of Falcon and Winter Soldier, and I'm going to kind of turn things over to the Marvel Master Britt to lead that conversation. But yeah, so just so you guys know, also we're going to last week we started our part by part review of Zack Snyder's Justice League. Part 2 of that will be going up this week, and we'll feature these 2 guys. So tonight we'll give you a little bit of a primer for what their input will be for part 2. But keep an eye out for that.
We're attempting to have a guest or 2 on each part. The first one we didn't have time to line things up, but hopefully if everything works out, we'll be able to do that. If not, it'll just be Ryan and myself on some of them. But
what part are you guys gonna get Zach on?
Any part he wants, Chris. Any part he wants. Yeah. Zach, if you're listening,
he is. He always is.
He's the one guy that's here.
Right. Yeah, so we're talking with the comic movie marks, who we've had on here before, Scott McClellan, and film junkie Dave Pena, and also the BVS by the Minute guys, Stephen Colbert and Andrew Dice.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Speaking of film junkie, Ryan and I were both on the vodka stream this past Friday.
Heck
to the wee hours of the morning.
Yeah,
still recovering
East
from
Coast life. Dude, I had to get up the next day, and I had to dig a 60-foot 12-inch trench across my yard too. So I was doing that all day. Last night I was out by like 7:30.
I'm sure.
At least you're so young. Brandon's it's getting rough for him.
I'm definitely losing a few years of my life because of that.
That was a lot of fun. And hopefully we'll be able to jump back on there with those guys.
Absolutely.
Always good to geek out with some like-minded folks. You kind of lose track of time. You look at the clock, and we start at like I think 11-ish our time, and look at the clock and it's 3 a.m. You realize, we have a problem.
I was out doing stuff that night, and I would check in at the beginning, but I was like in the middle of things. I'd just do like a quick comment that made no sense. I'd get off, and then like I'd come back later thinking like, all right, let's see how long this thing was. And it was still going live, and I was like, is it? And it was like a few times that I did that. I was like,
oh, that's great.
We're going.
Heck yeah, man.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump into it here. Brandon and I kind of did a initial reaction video after we watched it the first time, and then we started obviously our part series last week. So everybody who watches our channel kind of knows what Brandon and I think. But I'd like to get kind of overall
everyone
thoughts.
Is so surprised we both loved it. I know.
Yes.
It's crazy.
I know. Wild. Chris, what do you think about the movie? Just general thoughts overall.
Yeah, I mean, I know I kind of touched base with you guys because I watched it with you for your 5th, my 2nd. I've seen it 3.5 times now, and then random bits.
Nice.
I mean, the first one was kind of the worst viewing for me, and by worst, I don't want that to mean like it was bad, but it was a lot to take in. I was still trying to like set things in my head aside from the 2017 version that were kind of planted there. And it was hard for me to watch that and just be like, how do I feel about this? Like, I don't know if I'm disappointed in any ways. And the first viewing was not as good for me, but definitely everything since then, I've just really come to love the movie. Some initial complaints I had on that first viewing have kind of gone away. And I don't think that it's perfect, but definitely really dug it. And it's probably fighting, BVS for me of what's number one. But yeah,
I'm probably right there with
holding
you.
it in high regard.
It's one of those. Yeah, it's one of those where we've talked about it before, but when we watched it the first time, we were kind of just like in awe of the fact that it was happening.
It is.
It was also 3 a.m. But and the second viewing for me was kind of like, and I liked it the first time, but the second viewing was when it really kind of like hit its stride for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, didn't help that we were watching it in the middle.
This is a loyal watcher here. He paused the 17th screening for us.
How many hours is that?
Thank you for that.
That's right. How many days is that?
68 hours.
He's got you beat, Ryan. Or she. We don't know. General significance could be male, female. We don't want to assume.
Britt,
I want to get
what you
that.
got?
So I've only watched it twice. I'm not up there with all the watches there, but that's just because it's hard to find time to watch a 4-hour movie.
Sure.
But first time, really loved it overall. I thought it was really good. It was one of those things that I'm in the same camp of everybody. The first iteration of this movie just felt like two different movies clashed together, and it was just missing. You didn't know why things were happening. So it was good to watch this and see all of those pieces that were ripped out. You're like, why were those taken out? Which I know is things that you guys have said. So, watching it and seeing the whole thing was really good. I am going to say something that maybe you guys won't like, but
no,
went back.
All about it.
So got the wife to watch a little bit of it. The first viewing, she kind of popped in and out of it. So I went back and watched part 2. For the session.
Challenge accepted, general significance, by the way. Challenge accepted.
And we tried to do Justice is Gray, and we started it, and I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of the black and white.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe it's just I don't have great vision, so maybe like it just seemed muddy to me.
I couldn't see it, so it wasn't great.
So
I haven't tried that one yet.
I'm black and white colorblind, so it just looks like nothing.
So I don't know.
I'm surprised you haven't tried it, Chris.
No, I was going to the other day, but like Britt kind of brought up, it is 4 hours to kind of cut out, and I got busy with a few things. And today I just really quickly went to watch part 2 only, and I did that on the not original, but Zack Snyder original, not the gray.
Got it.
We got 3 versions on HBO Max right now.
Yeah.
For the people that don't know, we should probably kind of, and maybe Britt, you know this, and Chris, you might know this as well, but the reason, do you guys know why there is a black and white version? Have you read up on any of that as far as
I haven't read up on it, but you've told me.
Okay, I told you. So are you aware? I guess we'll just say it just in case
Brandon
somebody
never shuts up about this movie,
So Zach lived with a black and white version of this movie for 3+ years, 4 years more, I guess now, because that was the copy that he had on a USB drive. When he left the project, he took that, and they would output the most recent edits and updates in black and white. It's quicker. It hides VFX, I guess early VFX work, unfinished, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of special to him in that regard. And then all the images from the cut that he would put out on Vero to kind of stoke the flames for the fandom to push for it, they were all black and white. So that's essentially why he did this.
So Chris, one thing I think you'll find interesting about it is it's really any infidelities in the effects that you recognize in the colored version, it just disappeared. It's creepy how crazy they disappeared. The Amazon Themyscira horseback sequence and that kind of thing. It looks real. It's
how did Ares' face look?
Better.
Okay.
Better. Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird how it's it just, for me, and it sounds pretentious to say, and I'm sure that people like Al would say, well, you're just liking it because Zack Snyder likes it. And I get that. But I do think that it helps this movie being in black and white, I mean, it's a cool thing just in general because of what it means, but it also, it allows you to just focus on it. Things aren't competing for, you know, like when you're looking at something color, there's so much going on. You're like, you know, you're like looking in different directions. But for whatever reason, for me, when I watch it in black and white, I'm able to just focus on what's going on and not like get lost or redirect my attention in different areas. And you can kind of, he does use that to effect in terms of kind of helping you, like, you know, helping you know what you're supposed to be looking at in black and white.
Yeah, there's things, especially sequences where he's using like light effects or that kind of thing. He, like, you can tell he's pulling, like in the black and white version, he's really pulling you to his focus on certain things. Like when Superman is resurrected and he flies up into the atmosphere, and it's just like in the black and white version, it's just like a black silhouette over, like, with the sun behind him, and it's just a lot of like the flash sequences too, like those little things that you pull that you didn't necessarily pull in.
And and it's not like it's something where they just like pulled the saturation down. Like it's color corrected in black and white. Like it's not like no things that are like blown out, no things that get crushed. It's like it's well done. So sorry you didn't like it, Britt.
Like your guys' continued watches, have you gone to mixing it up between the black and white versus color, or you're just doing?
I'd probably say a third of my viewings are black and white.
Wow.
I'm still chipping away, like intently watching the black and white in small chapters. It's funny, like last night I finished chapter 6 or part 6, and I was in the bed, and so it ends. Melissa's on her phone. It ends. She's like, "Well, I guess that's a good place to stop and watch something else, right?" I was like, "Yeah, I guess so."
Take the cue, Brandon.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm just kind of chipping away because the day that it came out, I was at work, and so I just had it picture in a picture in the corner. I didn't really intently watch it. I honestly, like, barely paid attention to it. I just listened mostly because I'm working. So I really didn't get to appreciate it. So. I've just been kind of watching it piece by piece at night, but I'm enjoying it.
Nice.
So far.
Cool.
I didn't mean to derail that. I'm sorry. I tend to do that.
I love the lessons.
Brandon's like, let me explain Zach to you guys. Just give me like 10 minutes. What'd you say?
I said, do you guys know how we got here? How we got this movie? Let me just
tell me about that. Yeah.
We were at we had a Easter lunch today with Katie's family and my mom and her fiance also, and I think my mom's fiance asked, like, what, like, I saw on HBO Max the Zack Snyder's Justice League. So I was like, is it different from the old one, or? And I was like, I leaned back in my chair. I was like, well, how long do you have?
Yeah.
So
give you the abridged version.
Katie's mom jumps in. She's like, you got 4 sentences, Ryan. Explain it. Impossible. But so if you guys, it's a question I don't want to forget to ask. We'll start with Chris. Do you have a favorite part in this movie?
Like literal part, as in like parts 1 through.
Yeah, like no. Sorry, like a scene, just like, or whatever.
Okay,
yeah.
Scene, sequence, whatever.
I mean, there's so much in this movie that wasn't there before, and certain things, maybe it's not my favorite part, but I think it's like such like a positive impact versus what we saw before. Like anything with Cyborg is huge, and like the relationship he has with Silas, and even Silas's character in itself, you know, it's pretty awesome of the character that's there that didn't exist before.
Yeah.
But to go with, you know, the easy one for me, Flash's final scene.
Oh, what a surprise!
Yeah.
Hey,
that was Ryan's
I'm a Superman fan, and yeah, that's my favorite moment as well. So I feel you.
Yeah.
As a Flash fan, I don't really see how it cannot be your favorite moment.
I mean, just that. I mean, I think I told you my first viewing, I really didn't know that I was sold on this version of Barry Allen yet, but in all the subsequent viewings, I'm picking up more not on what they have him doing there, but what they don't have him doing. And I realized how different the character is. Like, okay, they didn't make him afraid again this time, but it's hard to get that out of my head of Ezra Miller being like the timid Flash. So yeah, I mean, seeing it again and again to where I'm like, okay, this is the Flash that they've made, and I've kind of got the other one out of my head now. Definitely digging a lot more. Nice. And as you guys know and have said, I'm a pretty big Flash fan and have been forever. So yeah, that final scene where he kind of like reaches up.
I love when he gets, I know that moment that like piano key plays like right when his hand goes up.
And that theme that they play there, it's awesome.
Yeah. I'm kind of right there with you. I've never been a huge Nick. I've never been a huge Flash fan. I've kind of talked about that on here before, but leave it to Zach.
Yeah. Even that little scene that he did when he got everybody out of the harbor to where like he goes over other people and it's like just picking up all the debris and everything.
Did you see the screenshot of? Oh God.
Wow.
I think we were talking about the same thing. Go ahead.
Why don't you tell me?
No, I've said enough. You go ahead, Ryan. You take it.
All right. There's a screen grab. Somebody went through and screen grabbed like all the different positions he's in, and like as that thing's going on. And there's one where he's like in the middle of it, where he's like standing back from the group with his arms crossed, like analyzing. Like
isn't he like doing like this?
Yeah,
or something.
Like, he's like trying to figure out.
So good to like the Flash character. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
What'd you think about the? Since you are a Flash fan, I kind of want to talk about that stuff with you. What'd you think about I guess we kind of knew back in the day that about the Iris scene with him, but what was that like watching that one unfold as intended?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have gone back and watched just that part a few times. Probably every Flash part, if I'm being honest myself. But yeah, that one was a really cool kind of combination of things that I think helped. That all these characters are complex, including the Flash, which I think all that's been ditched before. And I think, an average viewer doesn't realize that he is a complex character and it's just a comic relief. So you got a little bit of the theme of the comic relief of him like snatching the hot dog and the faces that he's making. And like,
I love
like
that
little
shot
pre-interview.
He's like looking back, like tucking the hot dog.
Oh yeah, so proud of him. But yeah, I mean, like you really see the worry and the heroism and just the magnitude of his power, and like you see him as like an elemental force, like just the way he spiderweb breaks the glass and just like tears up the asphalt because he's not paying attention. He's just like honed in on Iris, and you're just seeing like the power that's there. So yeah, it was a cool shot, and I really liked that song. That was
I know that's awesome. Yeah. Song of the Sirens.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
She's an artist that is not like, I didn't see a ton about her online, but she's got some really good songs.
Somebody posted a clip of them recording that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, last week maybe.
Let's see here.
Because it seemed like that version was possibly done just for the movie. But yeah, it's
Rose Betts. Anybody who has not checked her out, definitely go do it. Rose Betts. She's
hoping she makes the vinyl.
All the song choices are so interesting this go around too. Yeah. Like compared to last time. And I love it in a good way. It's so like it's such a strong choice to use those songs versus like what I imagined the studio would have wanted, like the Icky Thump thing that they used. Like so juxtaposed, but I mean
There's a Kingdom with Aquaman
scenario where they would have been like, yeah, you can do that. No, except for this scenario. But
exactly. He lets these, because he basically could do whatever he wanted, he lets these like character moments play out just like something that you wouldn't like. There's no way that the like the Icelandic song that they sing when Aquaman leaves at the beginning, there's no way that makes theater, like if it's a theatrical release, like there's no way. But yeah, so
it's great.
That was one that grew on me for sure. From viewing one to after the Icelandic one, the first time I was like,
it just
that was a bit much.
To me,
it did go a little long, but I liked it.
Yeah, well, they're a little off-putting at first. I mean, maybe not for everybody, but for me, it was like, okay, this is what we're doing. Like it wasn't like the obvious choice in a lot of, but once you kind of went again, it's like for me, it's all second viewing. It's like, okay, this is what they're doing. It's what they're trying to do, and so you accept it for what it is, and it's like, okay, I see what they're doing here.
That's actually kind of what I would say. Like, to me, the first viewing, like when Aquaman, like you mentioned, when he's walking towards the water and stuff, like the different songs throughout the movie to me, just they seemed odd and out of place. But I think that was partially because I was remembering, like you mentioned, remembering the music from the original cut, right? And then just the fact that they just, I don't know, to me, it didn't really mesh. But I think to your guys' points, I think the more you watch it, it feels more right in the movie, I guess. But I think that's just probably where my brain was thinking.
It makes it feel, the way to describe it, I feel like it makes it feel like more of like a genuine art piece than like a studio piece, I guess.
Helps the characters too, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I texted you guys that I liked Icky Thump. I mean, I like Icky Thump the song itself, and it was one that I kind of liked in the original release. But if you try to do it now with how they've fixed the Aquaman character, like it doesn't fit at all, and the tone is totally different. So yeah, I mean, if they put Icky Thump back in, even though I liked it how they did it before, it would not work at all in my mind. Just the character isn't the same.
So that another one is the the song when Lois leaves the coffee shop for the first. You kind of described, Chris. You kind of described it as like the ultimate Zack Snyder.
Oh yeah.
Moment shot.
Just that like, simple, just like down the street, like a little bit more vignette in that scene than anything else.
It's raining, of course.
Of course, Zack's in that one.
Yeah.
What's cool about going back to the Arthur music, if I may, the
I'll allow it.
Justice League, the Justice League by the Minute guys, Dyson Colbert mentioned this on one of their shows. I can't remember which one it was, but that song is a Nick Cave song. That There's a Kingdom or whatever it is, and in true Zack fashion, there's always usually some sort of double meaning to things. It's obviously got the lyrical content is relevant to Arthur. Yeah. But also Nick Cave had like a teenage son that passed away and his name was Arthur. Like ironically enough. It's like so just stuff like that. It's like really cool. Like I wouldn't have known that if
I'm sure there's
one that said it.
So much personal meaning for him that he dumped into this movie that people haven't even picked up on yet.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
But yeah, Britt, what about you? What if you had to pick a favorite moment?
So I think I have kind of two favorite moments. One, of course, which we'll get to.
You only get one.
The whole.
Just kidding.
Well, the other one I know we don't want to talk about yet because it'll be later. But the whole nightmare sequence afterwards, like the ending sequence. But really, outside of that, like I really loved in part two the huge battle that goes on with Euxis and all of that. Like to me, the first one was cool, but the fact that they like in the first one, I think you just barely see a lantern in the sky, and then that was it. Like you don't get anything, but you actually see the lanterns in here. You see, all the different characters. So like to me, and it's him and not Steppenwolf, right? Like it makes more sense in the actual fight. So like to me, I thought that one was just really cool. And there's a lot of little pieces, and I can't remember if it was Chris that said this or someone else that I had heard before, but they were saying that when the lantern's hand gets cut off and the ring comes off, it goes right to him because the ring is supposed to go to the most like powerful person, but then realizes his evilness and like starts to fly away. Like,
dude, there was a screenshot that somebody put up of that moment on Twitter when the movie came out, and I was like, Darkseid grabbing for a lantern ring, like with the glow. I'm like, how is this in a live action movie? This is awesome.
So I really like that. I like seeing like the different factions really coming together at a bigger level. And again, kind of really also showing like them doing it there and then kind of tying to the end of the movie, right? You're doing the same thing where all those factions have to come together to fight against them. Now it is crazy that like only a couple of them can take them down compared to them, but I guess they didn't have the Kryptonians. So
sure.
It's true.
Kind of talking about Steppenwolf and Darkseid. That was one of the things I wanted to kind of discuss with you. Like one of the biggest differences between the theatrical and this, and there are a lot of them, is the depth of the villain roster and the depth of the characters themselves. What was your kind of take on? And we'll start with Chris again. What was your kind of take on Steppenwolf in this movie? versus theatrical.
Yeah, I mean, again, it kind of comes down to like characters for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is another one. Before, like, what was Steppenwolf's character? Like, he blew bubbles and he yelled and he had a weird looking face,
Bubble
like
moment.
chewing gum. And this time around, like, yeah, I mean, like, obviously the visuals are way different, but I mean, you see that he is like insecure and he's angry and he's just trying to like prove himself, and he's, you know, just like this dispatched, you know, kind of fall from grace of his family on Apocalypse, trying to like work his way back, and just like you can see the vulnerability, hear it, and then it's in the conversations too. So like, I mean, it's just so much more character there. And it's just so much better.
Nice. Britt, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's crazy, kind of thinking back to the first one and this one, like the first cut, what's weird is it didn't feel like there was a setup for this giant multiverse, right? Like they mentioned Darkseid, but you didn't really get to see him and get to see kind of him moving the pawn pieces around.
They definitely just mentioned him.
Yeah.
Just once.
So it's like, when you think of like, I mean, what they were contending with the Marvel universe, right? And setting up this giant thing and them having to kind of play catch up in a way in a lot of their movies. So like what just blows my mind is when you watch this, you can see that, oh man, they are setting up this giant universe with Darkseid and with all the different like generals and pieces of his army. And it was just, I don't know. To me, it was just one of those where, like, kind of to Chris's point, like, you got a backstory, you got reasons why they were doing all this stuff. And you could see this leading into multiple movies. And it's almost like, looking back now, it's like, did they think the Justice League was already going to flop, that they were just like, all right, let's cut it down and just get down to just the one villain? You know what I mean?
Oh, it's great. And you think about just the like, just from a business perspective, the merch that they just tossed, like merch potential they just tossed away with what came out in 2017.
I mean, they could have sold a carrier for the toys to put all your Justice League action figures in, and they cut it right out.
Yeah, I know. They that's one of the things too, is you can see, like, they had merch coming out when the movie came out and leading up to the movie, but like now they're like, they continue to launch stuff now because they're like, oh, people are like really buying a lot of this stuff. We should keep making stuff.
They probably had a lot of assets that they created for merch that they weren't able to make too. So they're like, hey, we've got all this stuff. Let's put it out now. But
what do you guys think about Steppenwolf's appearance versus his armor versus the OG?
If you don't say amazing, then
you're talking about Brandon's favorite part of this movie here. All right,
but I'll let you know, they will mute you and kick you off because they've done it to me a few times.
Yeah,
no, I would definitely say
that's ridiculous, Chris.
We would never do that.
No, I definitely love the detail that was put in there. He looks way more menacing. I mean, like, just with the spikes and stuff, like, and the detail was great in it. Whereas before it was very just muted, essentially. Like, I don't know. I definitely liked all of the. And
he had a belt buckle in the original one, a skull belt buckle.
I think this armor works way better, you know, in the moving picture versus still, because you can like see it breathing and shimmering. I mean, I know when like it was first kind of like leaked or shown or whatever, people were making fun of it online, and it was kind of like, I don't know, maybe it's cool, maybe it's not. But when you see it actually moving and light around it and stuff, like, I'll
be honest, I was one of those people that was like, I don't know, like, I didn't know if I was sold on it when like when Zack first put up that, you know, still of a very early render of Steppenwolf in the like Amazon shrine. I was like, I mean, it's definitely different, but I wasn't not that I was like, I liked it better than what we got in theatrical, but I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be, you know, if it's going to make that much of a difference for me. And lo and behold, it made a ton of difference for me.
Have you told these guys about your favorite Steppy moment?
My favorite Steppy moment. I talked about this on the vodka stream.
Sad eyes.
I'll drink a little water for Dave.
Yeah,
so we plugged him there. They the scene in Themyscira when Steppenwolf is getting the first mother box and he's like fighting with all the Amazonians on horseback, throwing them around, whatnot. He's getting shot up with arrows. He finally like dismantles that whole group, and he's just he like has this like he's got all like 6 arrows in him, and he does this like and just like snaps, like removes all of them off of him, and it's like this like gorilla, like just such a like primal like that stuff just pumps me up when I see it. So
you said that exact same thing when I watched it with you. When I came in, as soon as he did that, you were just ready. You're like, I mean, that movement was just like so gorilla, just primal.
What's funny is
go back.
Chris, he's been telling me that when we were watching it, he would lean over to you and say, "Ryan's about to talk about this moment because he really likes it," and then I'd say something.
But you would already lean over, you're like, in a few minutes, there's this one point. So, being into it.
Oh, that's great. That's this
hilarious.
Also, speaking of this armor, Chris, to give you incentive to watch the Justice is Gray, that's one of the things that you really can see, like the kind of like organism nature of his armor in that version.
Yeah, I just saw we got a comment about that.
Oh, do we? Oh, yep.
There
he is.
Quick.
I did it.
The man, the myth. This is a good point too. The people have been putting up memes of the I think it's the Desaad moment when he tells him he still owes him 50,000 more worlds, and he's like
just puts him in a moment.
Yeah,
he takes he swallows a little bit.
Yeah,
Lump goes down his throat. He's like,
"Oh man!"
So you don't get that a lot in villains, which is great.
Katie leaned over when we were watching it. She's like, "Is it weird that I like feel kind of bad for this guy?" Like,
well, I think that's what makes a good villain in any of the movies, because all these movies have issues, and this is DC and Marvel, right? A lot of them have issues where you have this villain for the movie, and at the end of the movie, he's gone, right? And so, like in this one, there's tons of examples, but like in this one, you finally have a villain where you're actually getting this story behind him. You understand his motives and what he's kind of doing. And I feel like that's what's so good about this version compared to the other version, because the other version was just a giant monster. Let's take him down. Don't really care about him.
Right.
Where now you kind of have this backstory, and it's not necessarily you want him to win, but like you kind of do feel a little bad, like when he's just like getting destroyed.
It was cool for this angle, having him be like exiled, out of favor with Darkseid. It's different than what a movie would typically do, which is like they had a family member or a kid that, like, somebody that passed away or due to some event, and they're getting their revenge or whatever, and it's outplayed, and it's kind of a cheap thing. It's like how movies, I think I talked about this on our Godzilla review, Godzilla versus Kong. It's like the go-to like playbook for making characters endearing is having them lose a wife or a kid or something. And so this was just, this guy has been exiled. He really, all he wants is approval and favor with his higher ups, and he wants to go home, and that's it. And he's doing, he's doing everything that he can to get home. That's all he wants. And it's simple, but it's like those moments that they give him, just you can see it in his face. That's all he wants. He wants to go home.
Yeah.
Please let him go home. And they cut off his head. Listen, I'm Team Darkseid, all right? I'm just gonna come out there and say it. I'm Team Darkseid. I'm pulling for the Apocalyptians, if that's what they're called. I don't even know. Is it Apocalyptians? Okay.
Apocalyptians. Yeah.
Apocalyptians.
Apocalyptex.
So yeah. Hashtag for Darkseid.
How's Luna gonna feel about that?
What about, kind of talking about Darkseid, we talked about Steppenwolf. What was your guys', because obviously we didn't see Darkseid or Desaad in the theatrical. What was your first reaction to those characters? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Britt, you go first this time.
Yeah, I mean, thumbs up. Like, I think that they put a lot of detail on them. And here's the thing, like, with Darkseid, if you put him up next to Thanos, right, in the Marvel universe, they look very similar. So, and a lot of people that are not true DC fans may not realize like his backstory, who he is, and things like that. So, I think they did a really good job of giving him detail and making it stand out to where it's not just here's Thanos' clone. That just a Marvel fan may say if they're not in the DC kind of world.
Big, bold, bad.
Yeah. So I think they did an awesome job there. I mean, he's very menacing.
The voice, Ray Porter, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys are like best friends with him now.
You know.
I know. I was telling Kelly about you guys having him on. She was like, why do they have you on if they have like big guys like that on there? I don't know.
Yeah, you know what?
We love you.
You're kind of right, Chris. What'd you think about?
Now let's talk.
So I mean, like, yeah, I liked the fact that they put a lot of detail in these characters, and the same thing with the other general. Like, it wasn't just this slab of metal mother box holder, right? Like, you get a little bit more to his character as well, even though it's not a ton, but you at least kind of get to see that there's much more there.
Yeah, and certainly formidable. The way I love at the end of the movie where his head flies through and he catches it with his foot and just crunch. Like, even you took the whole movie like trying to fight off this one guy and he's just trash compared to me.
There's also such a funny story when Ray was on here. When he said that Zach just like rolled a beach ball or something over to him. He just put his foot on it.
He said when Zach was doing it, he was like, "Don't mess this up." Internally, he's like, "Don't mess this up. Don't mess this up."
That's so crazy. I see now. I think about that. I'm envisioning Ray like, in his mocap suit.
You should do a little skit with him next time you guys hang out. Just get a beach ball, get Ray in a row or something.
Mocap recap.
Do that. Yeah.
Chris, what about you? Desaad and Darkseid.
Yeah, I mean, for me, both of them great, really cool to see. Darkseid was like a little bit spoiled in some of the stuff I'd seen leading up to this, so I'd already seen it. I was already sold. I mean, I thought he looked cool, sounded cool. Like Britt had said earlier, I love that they used him in that flashback scene of like Age of Heroes instead of Steppenwolf. It didn't really make sense.
I think we did that live reaction video, and was that the one where I think that was the one where they had to jump the first time. Yeah. We all like at that moment where he like lands and grabs the dirt, we were all like, oh, at the same time.
I don't even know why it's cool, but it is.
Yeah.
But Desaad, that's the surprise winner for me, I think. I love the effect they used of like kind of that like Chernobyl molten slab coming to life.
Monolith.
And, the eyes flickering and the voice. I love the voice there. Dude, I've always been a sucker for like kind of that digital twinge, like, when Neo kind of like gets swallowed up at the end of the Matrix.
Like needle-ish teeth where he's like hissing through it almost.
And I don't know why I love this scene, but when he kind of snaps at Steppenwolf and points at him with like that little claw finger.
You betrayed him. Yeah.
It's just such a cool shot, the way it just like comes in on it. Yeah.
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 Awesome.
Thumbs up on both for me.
Nice. The way I've kind of got this laid out is a lot of it is just kind of like going kind of character group by character group. But one thing that I did want to talk about was the Amazons, their treatment of the Amazons in this movie. Wonder Woman, you kind of lump her in with them. But that I've said on, we've talked about this movie on multiple streams now, but the Themyscira stuff, especially the second sequence, I guess, where Hippolyta shows up and Steppenwolf booms in, like that's one of the sequences that like has really like stuck in my mind for this film, like the dialogue and like the like technical photography of it. And Chris, I'm sure you can appreciate just how well like he like works the focus ring in that sequence. Like, it's awesome. And people just like jumping into focus, jumping out of focus, like at the just
adds a lot of impact, emotion to everything too.
Yeah. So what, I guess just in general, what were your thoughts on kind of the Amazon treatment compared to what you've seen in Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman 84 and original Justice League? Chris, you first.
So I think Zach does Amazonians better than anyone. We all saw Wonder Woman together in theaters when it first came out. You guys were and still are a little higher on it than I ever was. I mean, I thought it was fine. It was okay. 84, that was terrible. That one was like painful for me to watch.
Yeah.
But I mean, this just everything he does is cool. When you get those, those vibes of 300, which, that was his start. We all kind of know him from that. And, he still nails it, but he just gives so much strength to these characters and these female characters that making it feel like forced, like this, like, girls can do it cool kind of thing. It's like, no, it just happens that these characters are females and they're awesome. Like there's, it just feels so natural and unforced.
It goes beyond like girls, like girl fans liking them to like even like guys are like, okay, these guys are total badasses.
Oh, yeah,
like,
for sure.
Yeah. Like,
and then there's just so much more like magnitude to it. Also, like before this movie, the Amazonians just felt like a small little like clan of characters to me. Whereas all of a sudden now you're seeing like the size of Themyscira, and you're seeing, people in like a village and like tons of warriors on horseback, and you're seeing so much more. I remember you
mentioning that establishing shot.
Yeah, it's crazy. Just any little thing like that. And Brandon, you actually kind of pointed out to me, and I've definitely kind of taken notice of it, is in that Age of Heroes shot. It's so cool to see the Amazonians more of like a tribal aesthetic that you can see has like evolved over time. I mean, it's awesome. You can just feel like, it just feels like there's so much more thought that was put into it, and I'm sure he has a backstory in his head and just all this mythology and like, tons to unpack, I'm sure.
And their storyline gave so much more weight to the whole mother box thing too. Just the way it was, like the way he opens with the mother box, kind of like snapping to life in the I don't know what you want to call it, tomb or whatever that they're in. But like, and then they're all just behind it, like letting out like a war chant. Like they just these people have just been waiting there, just, like on guard.
Yeah, I think I compared it to like the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier on our Part 1 review, where it's like they just for thousands of years they've just had people guarding, this box just in case, bracing for the inevitable. But yeah, I agree. I mean that whole like history lesson with them when they're like they have like their pelts and they have like bone like headdresses and things like that. It's just a really cool alternate look for them that would make sense chronologically, but just to show the evolution, it's really cool.
Yeah. What about you, Britt?
Yeah, and I'm in the same camp. I mean, like I loved that 300 feel. And it's almost like, and it makes perfect sense, right? Like the Amazons have been around for so long, so they've lived through those different years, right? So they would have seen Spartans and all the different giant armies that came through. So they've probably picked up on different things that they can, that were like the best, fighting sequences and things like that from those, those different guys. So like I really enjoyed that because it did make you feel like these guys can compete, right? Because the thing is, like we've seen in the old Wonder Woman, like they were great, but then in the original Wonder Woman, like men came in with guns, and then yes, they did okay, but at the same time, like a sword.
That's a good point. Yeah,
with a gun, right? Yeah. But then like in here, you're still seeing like yes, they're still using swords, shields, spears, and stuff, but I mean they know how to use them. And I definitely like that. I do think it would have been cool. So I know that 84 came out way later and it wasn't in thoughts and stuff, but I do think it would have been cool to see that the armor with the wings and everything, since that was like a great, goddesses.
Would have been cool for them to use that just in general in that movie that they had.
Oh, you mean that thing? You mean that thing she had wrapped up in cardboard paper in her office?
Yeah. No, it'd have been cool in the original, like when Darkseid comes down to like see like one or two Amazons with wings on or something. Which again, I get it based on when things were filmed. I'm sure that wasn't even on the radar of including, but it's definitely one of the. I think that's the other part, and we talked about this before, right? Like seeing Justice League now, I have to forget what we know from Aquaman and what we know from Wonder Woman 84, just in the fact that all of that was filmed afterwards. So like when you had Aquaman getting, the Triton, his mom's Triton, and then you have Aquaman, the movie, you have to kind of pull those apart a little bit. So
yeah, there's definitely.
Speaking of Aquaman, Britt, I mean, you could pass for King Atlan. I mean, you got the beard
totally good.
getting close.
That'd be great. Halloween costume solved.
So maybe so.
So let's work that up. We'll talk.
All right.
Yeah.
Brandon can be Ares.
Yeah.
We'll see if they actually have dragon.
You're gonna have to work out, Brandon.
Come back up to Atlanta.
A lot. He's got the calves already, right?
I'm gonna be the David Thewlis version of Ares when it's just David Thewlis.
All right, let's talk about some soups because I love me some soups. Just obviously what we got in the theatrical version with Superman was meme worthy, and his
why is that?
His fake little whatever you want to call that thing, lip. What was kind of like the coolest thing that you saw in this movie that with his storyline that you didn't get in the theatrical? Start with Britt this time.
Okay.
All right. So
are we going to be able to? Can we answer these two, or is it just these?
Brandon, if you have thoughts, go ahead. I just feel like we've talked about it a million times.
Well, you haven't asked me that question before ever.
Well, look, we haven't. We've got 5.
Because you're the Batman.
6 more parts.
Superman questions, man.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Go ahead. Guess.
No. So the one thing I thought was really cool, and when he comes back and he's just wiping the floor with Steppenwolf, what I thought was really cool was the fact that you could see kind of the anger in him at some level, right? And so, like, I do like that call back to the Superman movie of like when he's fighting Zod and he has to make the decisions and stuff. And I know that there's a lot of people that have a lot of issues with Superman in that movie because he had to take down Zod. But I do like it. To me, it's like it's a subtle callback to that of just showing like if Superman needed to do something, like he's got that power to do it and he can do it. Right. And so like I like that there's those parallels there, and it wasn't just like in the original cut where he's just like he's beating him up, but it's almost like he's having
guy's still bothering you.
Yeah. It's like he's having fun in the old one, but in this one it's like you can tell like he's there with a mission. And I definitely liked the tone. And it was a little bit of a scary Superman, which I think was okay.
Yeah.
So
it was awesome. That's what it was, Britt. It was awesome.
Yeah, I would agree.
Chris, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of little things for me with Soups in this because he's probably in it less than anyone, right? Got to be.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't come in.
I think Ryan Choi has more time.
Yeah, I mean, I really wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, I mean, a lot of little things like the opening. Call me crazy, but I really like kind of the sonic death cry going instead of the cell phone video.
Oh my God.
So that was cool. That was a nice change.
It's an S.
Yeah,
it's a river and stuff.
Something. Those kids stuff and stuff. I hate those kids. But yeah, I mean, like all the little things like that are cool. I like that he spoke instead of smelt, or whatever it is that Lois says to him. Like Britt said, that you see kind of like that anger and that energy to him. That's really cool to see. I love his interaction with Alfred. It's just, I don't know, just as like a comic book nerd who read these characters, like just him having that back and forth and him calling him like Master Kent. Like, I don't know, it's like a little kid in me. He's like, yes.
I know too, you mentioned after we screened it the first time, the kind of when he gets back in the ship to get his suit, and they've got the kind of like fathers talking over the whole sequence before he takes off.
Definitely awesome moment.
Yeah, that got the Zimmer score going, and I'm all about it. It was awesome.
Yep.
How do they cut this?
My favorite moment with him is
so, guys. I was going to ask
over a Superman moment. And that is the moment when he and Lois are back at Kent Farm, and he's like, he says something to the effect of like, she really loved it here.
Looking out the window in the swing.
And he's like, so did I. And then it's got that long pan back, shows the, the swing. It's like such a really, and the way that Cavill plays that moment is so genuine, and just like
as a farmer, you appreciated it.
Yeah, because he grew up on a farm. That's where he learned to fight, on a farm
for social media purposes.
And everyone, I hope, of your audience knows that Brandon, you are a farmer. You live on a farm.
Where I learned to fight.
Yeah, through your train.
It smells like chickens. That's for sure.
Chicken farm.
Yeah,
that's cool though. You can give it authenticity. You give them the sign off. One farmer to another.
Seal of approval. It gets Royston's seal of approval.
Right. So, that's my.
Not.
I've got the Mondo Man of Steel poster, where they're kind of out in that general area with the whole butterfly thing and the bike and all that from Man of Steel. So that was it was just like, it's not something that like you had to include, but it was just for the people who really love these movies, it was so cool to
the butterfly thing was a cool thing, a cool motif to bring back in. And it's also got that rebirth thing, with like caterpillar cocooning to a butterfly. But
and there's a few other scenes like around Superman. Like I loved like the flag that's kind of flying with the whole nod to Death of Superman comic.
Well, I can't tell you if I did or not.
So Brandon doesn't have a storm cellar. He has a chicken tank. And this is a thing. This is real.
Yeah, it's I think you call it the death pit. For those that don't know, we have a family. I live, in a very rural area. I grew up, on a farm, as Chris says. And yes, my dad raises chickens, and so they have a big hole in the ground, and it's a tank that they dump the dead chickens in.
Chris, I think I told you. I don't know if I told you, Britt, but when I was coming, because we made fun of Brandon pretty hard the first time we all went up there, and everything smelled like dead chicken.
You think?
When
I grew up there too, guys. I grew up there too. I know what you're talking
about. Well, all right. I don't think we would have made fun of you if we didn't get out of the car from coming home to pick up dinner, and we were like, "Oh God, what's that smell?" And Brandon goes, "I don't smell anything."
I don't. They spread litter in the pasture across from our house this week, and my brother was like, he's talking to my dad. He's like, "Yeah, it's funny. I don't really smell anything." And he's like, "Yeah, I think the wind's taking it over to the other direction, so you guys should be good."
But so when I came up to screen this movie, I was talking to him on the phone a couple days before, and he's like, "Ryan, I just want you to know that I asked my dad not to spread chicken litter this week."
You have no idea how nervous I was that was going to happen, because like I wanted to hang out outside, make a fire, but when that happens, you cannot go outside. It is the plague. Like there's flies everywhere.
It's rough.
So that's what you got instead of a spaceship.
If anybody's seen our CiNEMACHiNE reviews, every once in a while Brandon's got to like smack a fly on his head.
Yeah, you're right. It makes so much more sense now.
Yeah, this guy's fired.
So y'all brought up the farm, and I don't see it in your notes, Chris. So I want to, or Ryan, I want to ask the question here.
So yeah, a lot of these notes are for our part review too, by the way. So
yeah, no, you're good. You're good.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So like with the farm, like I think this is cool, and I'm gonna probably bring this up later when we talk about Falcon and Winter Soldier too. But I think I don't recall in the first movie them talking about how Martha was proud, and that's why she lost the farm, like, and not being able to pay the mortgage and everything. Maybe I just missed that, and it's been so many years, and I kind of blocked the first Justice League movie out of my mind mostly. But
the thing that I jumped to is Man of Steel. After Zod, I think it's Zod who throws the truck up into the roof of the house, and they kind of like Superman comes back to check on her, and she's kind of like going through all of her stuff, and she's trying to like find photos and whatnot, and he's worried about her, and she's like, "Oh, they're just things, Clark, like they can be replaced." I don't know, there's just like kind of like this sentimentality that she kind of gives in that performance.
I think it's also just a character trait that's like probably pretty common in a working woman, working man type household where they're.
I thought you were going to say a farmer's household, so we were going to get some more goodness from you.
Yeah.
Well, he did leave his flannel behind. That was kind of weird.
I mean, I grew up. I'm still here. The people around here are proud people in that they don't want handouts. They want to make their own way, that kind of thing. And so her having that as a character trait, you know, she works at a diner. She's not like, you know, Clark passed away. Who knows if Clark was helping her with her mortgage while he was working at the Daily Planet? I don't know. But I just think it's a cool, like, just a good little character beat for her to have that, where she's also, like, she wouldn't reach out to Lois because she doesn't want to see, you know, she doesn't want to be a burden to someone. And, you know, it's just, I know those people, so it just makes sense to me.
There's also that line in BVS where Clark asks Martha why his dad never left Kansas, and I think his quote is like, "Where am I going to go? I'm already," or where, I don't know what it says. "Where am I going to go? I'm already here," or something like that. Like it's just like it's their home. Like that's a part of them. But yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. There's definitely not like a like direct callback to that moment, so I can see how that could be something you pick up on.
Well, and it's just one of those things. Like I thought it was kind of a cool node, you know, and at the end where, you know, Bruce is like, "I bought the bank. Don't worry about it. You get to keep your house." Like, I think that's kind of one of those things that you don't think about. You have superheroes and things. How do they pay their bills and whatnot? So.
Yeah, Bruce pays them all. It's all good. So what do you guys think about pregnancy test and whatnot?
You know,
did you think she was pregnant when you saw the pregnancy test, or were you like, maybe they were just trying to have a baby or something? What'd you?
I thought we were going to get maybe more into it with it just being just a little, like, you know, if you blinked, you didn't see it type thing. But I know that, like, from what I've read online, and again, don't know what's all true that's being put out there, but there's a potential that, you know, that could have led into, you know, a whole different storyline if the Snyderverse and all that continues. And I know everybody's crossing the fingers. I actually think that, like, after seeing Justice League, like, I want to see more. I want to see more of the Snyderverse. I'm not saying that I didn't before, but it was kind of one of those things, like, in this world 10 years ago, 5 years ago, like, things like that don't happen, right? Like Ant-Man was the same way, where everybody was like, I want to see that cut of Ant-Man, not what Marvel did. So, like, you know, it's impressive that the fans can make it happen. And so I'm really curious if now the fans can make more happen with the continuation. So
restore the Snyderverse, baby. Restore the Snyderverse. Did you pick up on the bassinet at the end of the movie?
I don't know.
You told me about that.
Yeah, I don't know if I caught it or not.
There's when Bruce and Clark are walking up to the house at the end. They show Lois and Martha walking into the house, and Lois is carrying a bassinet. And then Bruce says congratulations to Clark, meaning that she's pregnant. So
yeah, people were like, if you don't see the bassinet in the background, you could just be thinking, oh, well, he's just congratulating on them getting married, because
that's why I took it.
Right, she's wearing the ring. So just true Zack fashion. It's like you figure it out.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I haven't watched it 17 times, so, you know, maybe the third or fourth time I would have saw.
You'll pick up on it. You'll pick up on it. You noob. Let's talk about you mentioned the nightmare sequence. Let's talk about the nightmare sequence a little bit. I want to let you kind of give your general thoughts on it first, Britt, since it was one of your favorite parts.
Yeah, no. So, and because it's one of my favorite parts, like, the reason why I like it is just the setup that it has, the characters they're bringing in. You know, we saw, like, I remember when Justice League was being filmed and they teased Deathstroke, right, in some of the different images and things. And then when the movie came out, like, literally he's just not really there, right? Like, you have the little tiny scene or whatever. But like in this one, I love that you're saying like, okay, so this is what happens. It goes back, and just like we said, like I felt like a Snyder Justice League and beyond was going to answer some of those questions that we were having in BVS and Man of Steel, like the nightmare sequence that we saw with Superman and Batman. Like you just didn't understand that. So I like that we started to get some answers around that. I love that they're bringing in some of these villains and showing you like when you're in the apocalyptic time, right? Like people are going to team up to be able to take down the bigger villain, right? Like the villain, the enemy of your enemy, you know, you're my friend type thing. Like, and so I loved seeing that and kind of getting the pieces, and we kind of got pieces throughout, right? Like we seeing some of the deaths and things. So it's not the Justice League that we're seeing now. It's a slightly different Justice League in the future with Aquaman dead and things like that. But, you know, I'm hoping this is maybe a redemption for Jared Leto's Joker. You know, I'm not one of those that are going to say like he was trash in the Suicide Squad, but I will say that like he isn't my favorite Joker. But I get that he was like trying not to be Heath Ledger, and he was trying not to be Jack Nicholson. He was just trying to do something different. But I do like this version of him. He feels kind of more in the world rather than, you know, the other. So, you know, I liked a lot of those scenes, and it makes me excited to where if the Snyderverse does happen, like I want to know how they get to that point. I want to know about the Robin suit with the writing all over it. Like I want to know about all those pieces. And sure, I can speculate based on comic runs to say, oh, this is when Robin was killed by the Joker. But like, I want to see that and see why.
Somebody asked him, I can't remember whose stream it was. Somebody asked him, so do you know how Robin dies? He was like, yeah, I know. He's like, can you tell us? I was like, no.
Has he talking about which Robin it is?
What's that, Chris?
Yeah,
has he talking about which Robin? Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay. I hate the idea of the Jason Todd Robin, and I hate, like, I know that the Red Hood thing became like a big fan favorite, but I honestly hate it, and I hate that they did it. So I'm really glad it's not like a Jason Todd thing that they're trying to do.
Mentioned on Bureau that.
Speaking of the Robin connection, Britt, you and I were in St. Simon's whenever the first Batman v Superman trailer dropped, and we were on the beach and it dropped, and I was like, I'm not watching it because I was trying to stay pure and not watch it. And then you watched it, and you're like, "You need to watch this." And you mentioned something about a Robin suit, and I was like, "All right, fine, I'll watch it."
Britt, I've done this to him so many times. I've done it to
Brandon,
him so many times.
I don't know about now. I don't know about now with the whole CAPECAST and CiNEMACHiNE, but prior to this, years ago, I remember being in the theater with Brandon, and he would put his head between his legs, cover his ears, wouldn't see any trailers. You know, because he wanted to go and cure it. And there's many movies where I watch a movie and I go, I wish I would have been like Brandon, because that trailer gave me the entire movie.
Yeah, I still try to do that. I mean, theaters is not much of a thing as it used to be, but yeah, I mean, the problem is like you're saying with doing a show about movies, and if you want to talk about stuff, you got to watch it. So. Yeah. Or maybe you don't. We'll get into that later.
One thing that before Chris, I ask you kind of your thoughts on the nightmare stuff. One thing on my 14th screening that I kind of picked up on, not that it's something that isn't obvious, but I just never really kind of connected the dots on it. I love how you basically epilogue, call it post-credit scenes, whatever, but you basically get the introduction to Deathstroke where Lex is like, do you want some information on how to kill Batman? And he's stoked about it. Cut to nightmare sequence, and they're working together. Like, I just wonder how, like, for a general audience person, they're like, I gotta see what happened here. Like, what changed? But that was just something that I don't know. I just never really had thought about that dynamic before. But anyways, Brandon, you got something you want to say?
No, I don't.
No.
Okay. Or Chris, what do you think about the nightmare stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the nightmare stuff was cool. It was a little weird, just all the epilogue stuff. I mean, in general, I just look at this movie as a movie, and I don't think of like the context, what is or anything. I'm like, none of this flows or goes together. But given it is what it is, it makes sense. Like he's putting everything out there that he's made. They don't want to do anything with it. So I get it. And everything on its own is cool. It's just the placement of it felt weird to me.
Yeah, I think that I kind of agree with you, Chris. I love it on its own. I think it does those 3 scenes at the end. You know, the Lex scene, the nightmare scene, and the Martian Manhunter lake house scene. They what are you thinking, Chris? What are you smiling about?
Nothing about the lake house.
Okay. So those do. I was trying to think of like how, because they do kind of break the flow of the movie. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I still love them. Like it's like I don't know if it would be better having like, okay, you do like right at the end, you do the Luther scene, and then you have like a credit montage. Like maybe they do that that thing that IGN put out with the, you know, that they were going to use for the opening of the show when it was this episodic thing. Maybe you do that, and then you have a stinger after the mid credits, and then you have one at the end. Maybe that breaks it up so it doesn't feel like it's part of the movie,
sure.
And it feels, because it is separate kind of. I mean, it's you know, it's
for sure.
But I know that they don't want to, you know, be seen as like copying Marvel, doing like an end credits type thing or whatever. Or Zach doesn't. He wants to have it all in one piece. But
I'm a little
for me, it does.
Go ahead. You finish.
Well, I was just gonna say, for me, it does. It does break the flow a little bit, and it feels just like extra. Like it doesn't feel as like organic to the movie.
I'm a little torn with it because I love it so much. And I felt like when they were, as we were waiting for this movie and we knew they were doing this additional photography, like I was kind of thinking they were gonna, well, I was thinking I was gonna do, they were gonna use like Cyborg when he's plugging into a mother box or something, like to jump into like the Flash time travel thing in BBS to like this kind of thing. So like creatively, I probably would have preferred something like that. But then at the same time, I also appreciate the fact that he like wanted to put out his movie from 2017 as it was intended.
And when it all comes out, I'm glad that we got it. Like, we know what this movie is and how it came about and all the challenges and everything. So it makes sense that it is the way it is. It was just like something that stood out to me. But I mean, the scene itself, I thought was super cool. And it's one of those things that it's so weird that we have this in live action. Like I'm looking at this and I'm thinking of like comic books and the animated stuff or like, you know, Injustice things. And
so great.
It's just, I'm still not quite processing like, oh, this is like live action, like to the world, you know, big budget, apocalyptic.
It's so different from anything that's been done live action comic book. Yeah. So different.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, all the character aesthetics are awesome. I mean, that kind of like hunchback cyborg and he like rips his cloak off. I really dig the Flash kind of get up just because it gives a little bit more like physical presence to Ezra Miller that he doesn't have. And that's something that kind of lacks for me with the Flash character. But
I really wish that they were able to film this without the COVID restriction type stuff going on, like as far as the time it was made, because not having Barry speak is like, now he shuts it. Like, I mean, maybe that's a character trait, but you know, because he had the,
I kind of, that part of it, I kind of, I liked actually, because it was almost all these characters had changed so much. It's almost like Barry had been worn down so much by
that's kind of what I was. That's kind of what I was getting to before I was cut off.
Sorry. Go ahead.
It's all right.
You're just what were you going to say about that?
All right, I said it.
But yeah, I mean, other than like those cool things, my one complaint is something that Brandon's complained about before. The Joker reach around line just felt so weird and forced to me. Like, not even like, I get that he's like a zany character and he's weird, but it just, it was like, all right, that was like some.
Yeah, the funny thing about that is we're on the same page there. And I was listening to Richard Citron do an interview recently, and he said that because Richard Citron was the stand-in for, for you two that you probably don't know this because you're not in the woods like Ryan and I are, but Richard Citron is Ben's double. He doubles a lot of things for Zach's movies, but he's like, you know,
like he did a lot of the Dark Side and Steppenwolf stuff. Yeah,
he did that too. But anyway, he was, so Ben and Leto weren't able to be on like together during that scene. So when they're doing Leto's lines, Richard is standing in and delivering the lines that Ben did. And so he said that when Leto did that, he's riffing like that. That's all a riff on from Leto. And so I think he said that Leto was like, I don't think you're going to use that one. Like he just went for it. And Zach was like, you just wait and see. And so it was the one that they went with. But so you guys, I know Britt, you seen it, but the additional scene that they put out, the We Live in a Society scene that Zach dropped this week. You guys saw that, right? We were talking about that on Vodka Stream Friday, and
Brandon,
I feel like I felt like the transition of that scene, as far as the laugh, the like weird like smile thing that he does at the end, and then he starts doing that the whole thing that he does. I felt like that transition was obviously because it's the same take. You can tell that they pulled that laugh in the movie. They pulled that laugh and inserted it after the fact. You know, they kind of chopped them together. I just think it makes more sense and it works better for that scene. I'm not saying that I would prefer that scene to be in the movie over what we got, but I think that's the part that if I'm going to complain about something about the nightmare sequence is when Superman lands and everybody's like gearing up to fight and they cut to Joker and he's just like laughing weirdly in the corner. Like that part of him laughing. I mean, I get what they're doing, but I would have rather him, instead of just laughing, just like maybe be laughing, but also be gearing up for the fight. Like he's just like, you know, he's just like ready for anything and not just like, it feels like he's not even reacting to Superman being there. It's like, it feels separate. But maybe that's just me. Yeah, it is. I'm just kidding.
And I think overall, like, I enjoy the scene because it makes me want more. It makes me want us to get to that point. But I definitely have the same kind of feelings. Like I was expecting to see those scenes throughout the movie, whether it was just kind of like we do at BBS, right? Like it kind of felt really out of place when you watch BBS the first time, where it's just kind of like these nightmare sequences keep happening, and it's like, why is he seeing the future? But and again, I know that that'll be something, or would have been something that would get explained, but like
will be something.
I said will. So we'll see when we get there. But that's kind of the thing. Like this is what I felt like we would have saw throughout. So like not seeing it at the very end of kind of the quote unquote movie part, I was just like, okay, well, where is it? And then it just kind of was like dumped there, and you're like, okay, well that's cool, but I get it with the flow and everything.
So
I think it works. I mean, as far as like pacing is concerned, giving it time, if it wouldn't have been like, you know, just Zach not wanting to do an end credits thing just as a principle, I think that having credits between, the end of the movie and the nightmare thing would give you enough time to just like decompress of what you just saw. But having it at the very end of already a very long movie, it makes it feel a little juxtaposed in comparison to me. But
how many features is that for general significance now? Like 7?
Yeah, hey man, killing it. Deserves every single one of them.
We'll see when we get to Falcon and Winter Soldier if he has any.
Before we do transition to Winter Soldier stuff, what I do kind of want to talk about, kind of the status quo. Like, is this something that you guys have a general idea of, what is on slate for DC and whatnot with it? With got coming up the Flash movie, another Wonder Woman movie, Suicide Squad this summer, the Black Adam stuff. And then there's obviously this movie that just got dumped, but doesn't have any plans for it. What are your thoughts on? Do you think this is something that? I mean, I know your answer, but I'm interested in kind of like any exposition you have. Like, is this something you'd like to see more of? Like,
no.
Well, I guess we'll start with. We won't start with Chris. We'll start with Britt.
Now, do you want to go?
What you got, Chris?
Go, Britt.
Yeah, I mean, this is all I care about with DC right now. I mean, I'm very interested to see what they do with the Batman and the Flash movie.
This is all I care about, period.
I know. But I know, Brandon.
I'm not even just talking about movies. I'm talking about in life.
I know.
Brandon tells me, like, we've had conversations where, like, leading up to this movie, he's like, Ryan, every once in a while I'm driving to work and I'm just like, please don't die today. Not before Zack Snyder's Justice League comes out.
It's really sad, Brandon.
How poetic would that be? Sadly.
Oh, all right.
Continue,
Britt,
Chris. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Or Chris, yeah.
No, you did. Yeah, I mean, I hope that Warner Brothers, whoever's calling the shots now, just sees what the fans have said, like what people want to see, what is good, what's what to ignore at this point.
How do you see it back in the box, man? Like that nightmare stuff. Think about how marketable that is.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so cool, and it's like instantly iconic too.
Yeah,
the visuals are so unique. Yeah. See, I mean, like, I really don't care about any, like, the Black Adam. Like, I mean, anything that they put out, I'm gonna watch. I mean, you guys know that I'm nerdy enough to where, like, something comic book related comes out, I'll at least turn it on. I'm not necessarily going to finish it. There's been several that you guys have been disappointed that I haven't made it through, but I'll at least try to watch anything. That being said, I only want to see Zack stuff, and then I'm curious of the Batman and the Flash movie.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am actually too. Like, and the Flash, even the Flash thing is kind of like, maybe we'll get some kind of like Snyderish.
That's kind of what I'm looking for. Yeah.
So, because of recent events and just I know how things kind of progress, I'm so worried about the Flash personally. But
I am too, man.
Like in the movies, or
it's
the
really
movie,
so.
The Flash
in all
movie.
honesty, I think it is the fact that Ben Affleck is involved. Like that's the thing
that makes me think. Well, that's the part that I'm like, I just don't see Ben. A lot of people think that Ben's coming back so they can kill his character off, but like, I just don't see why he would do that. Like, why would he? Especially now that Zack Snyder's Justice League has been like a major success, and he's gotten so many accolades due to it, and people love him as Batman. I just don't see him returning to the character just to end. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. Like, especially when he was like, even like before Zack Snyder's Justice League, he was like, he had a very hard run post BVS, not just in movies, just life in general. And so I just didn't see why he would come back just to be able to have a character send that character off if he didn't enjoy playing the character. I just don't see the point in his eyes, because it's just like opening a wound.
Right.
So that's why I think that I'm hoping that that's not why he signed on. I'm hoping he signed on because they're doing something cool, but
I mean, that's the movie to do it.
Yeah. And for me, I'm more worried about the DC movies in general, and the reason why I'm worried about them is
me too, man.
You've got a fan base that like maybe doesn't quite understand. Like, and when I say that, I'm looking at like not the hardcore fans, right? I'm talking about the people that just went to see Justice League, that went to see Wonder Woman, things like that, right? The people who bought tickets to Wonder Woman 84, like that kind of stuff. So I'm worried in general, because now you have the Zack Snyder stuff, right? You've got all this other stuff that's happened. You've got Aquaman, you've got Wonder Woman 84, you've got Suicide Squad, that are all pieces out there. And I get that it's not the Marvel universe, everything isn't intertwined, but I worry that now you're going to have, movies coming after, Snyder's Justice League, and people are going to then be trying to compare it back to that, right? Like the Flash movie, right? If you have the same characters that are going, it will, and I'm hoping that some of that carries over, but if it doesn't, like, that's my big worry there, right? Is, now you're going to have another Batman with a whole different character. And it's like, again, people, the true fans will understand these are different stories. These are different characters. That's why you see so many different Jokers and whatnot. But even when Joker came out with Joaquin Phoenix, there was still so many people trying to piece together, like, was this before that Joker? Is this a different Joker? And it's like, no, it's just its own movie. And so I
mean, you had
I worry,
that, but it didn't prevent it from making $1 billion.
And I'm hoping that that's not something that causes any kind of issues. I'm just thinking now you have this kind of new world. And so when you think of like Aquaman 2, The Flash, characters that are directly tied to that movie, I hope that some of that transitions over, like what you guys are saying. Like, it's not like they just forget about what happened. And, you know,
I've kind of talked about before how they introduced this multiverse concept last year. There, look at it. Number 8.
he's saying, I think, what you're about to say.
Yeah,
I think you guys need to send us some swag, some
right.
Sure.
If we had some, we would.
Yeah.
I'm afraid because of poor management that the multiverse isn't going to be something where they're like, oh, we've got a cool idea. Let's do a movie or a show on HBO Max. You know, I've got a cool idea for a standalone movie. Let's do that. Like, instead, I think it's going to be like I'm feeling like it's going to be a course correction tool for them. Yeah. And it worries me even more now because now that Zack Snyder, after Justice League came out, there wasn't really any like, other than the one For Dark Side line that they just kind of like tossed into the movie at a random point. There wasn't really any like worry of like future big bads or anything like that. And now you have this movie come out that is so huge, like scale, so massive, like Thanos level, like destruction, big bad kind of guy.
Yeah.
And now you're gonna just completely disregard that fact and just keep doing these like, I don't know, unfunny, chippy standalone movies. Like, are you ever gonna work back to that point? Like it just feels like everything's gonna be so below what this was trying to complete.
It definitely feels like that.
And the other thing too is we've talked about how it's just annoying, and I hate that it's this way, but it's annoying for me to watch a movie if they don't continue the storyline, if they don't finish the storyline. It's annoying for me to watch an Aquaman movie or a Wonder Woman movie or a Suicide Squad with Harley Quinn movie, because like these characters that were created in this world, but this world was just totally kind of like pushed aside. So that I've got this like, it's bad to say, but it's like a bitterness towards like seeing stuff with these characters when the storyline that they were originally intended to complete is not complete.
Yeah.
So it kind of like takes the fire out of my excitement for a lot of this stuff, which I hate.
No, I do too. I mean, we talked about it on the podcast stream, but it just feels like it sucks because they poured a big bucket of ice water with that article that said that they weren't going to pursue anything. And it just sucked the air out of the room in terms of enthusiasm. At least I assume. I mean, it feels like we're all on the same page here as far as the Snyder Cut community is concerned. But it's like, I was legitimately excited for these other projects, but when it feels like you don't want my business, like you don't want to cater to the things that are working, like right now, they're working. You got a huge hit on your hands, but you're just gonna like, no, we're not doing it.
And it's not even like saying that we don't want the other projects either. I'm like, I'm excited for this.
That's what I was saying. Like, I was so excited for it, but now that they're like, nope, you got to watch this other stuff. I'm like, well, I don't have to, and I honestly don't even want to anymore.
Well, look at what this fandom was able to do with getting this movie made off of a failure, and now they have the success. Like, there's no way that nothing happens from this. Like, as much as WB wants to try to like
Chris,
not look
you're
bad.
talking like a logical human being.
Well, here's talking about the other side.
Warner Brothers here.
Well,
I know.
Here's kind of the other side of it, though.
But you guys got this.
Well, I'm curious. Like, when you look at this, because it wasn't released in theaters, because there wasn't like money attached to it, right? Like, I'm sure there's contracts and things out there to where WB is seeing something from it. But I'm just saying, like, I think it is one of those things that it's not going to hit as hard, right? When you go, oh, we had X millions of views, and then they have to like walk that back, right? Unless they have a unique, account that watched it. So I think that that's the other side of it, when they're just going, look how many views you had compared to if this would have came out in a theater, if COVID wasn't a thing and it would have actually got pushed, like, and then go, look, you just made $2 billion and you're competing with some of the biggest movies out there, right? Like, I think that there's also that side of it.
They greenlit Wonder Woman 3 right after like getting roasted
the Monday
like,
after it. Yeah,
they heard what people were saying. They saw that movie too. They know that it was. I'm not going to say things that we'll get mad about, but man, I got some strong feelings about what they put out, and they still were like, "Oh yeah, we're putting out the next one." So,
well, what did Wonder Woman do in theaters though? Because it released side by side, correct?
that was all. No, I think that was
They did.
They did theaters.
Yeah, it was in theaters too.
Gotcha.
I'm not saying they made a ton of money, but I'm
Yeah.
sure they saw some money attached to it. So I don't know. Those are just my thoughts. There's like, there's no, I mean, numbers are great. And I agree with everybody here that they need to continue these, that this is one of the biggest hypes. And I think you guys just highlighted a comment too. Like, this movie has had more hype than most of the Marvel movies have even had, right? Like, you've had Endgame that had hype. You had the original Avengers that had hype, but like, there's plenty of Marvel movies that have way less hype than what the Snyder Cut had. And so, yeah, I would say like this is what they need to focus on. But
what's amazing to me is this, for all intents and purposes, and there's been numbers that have come out to like that kind of suggest that it's kind of didn't get quite as good of viewership as Wonder Woman 84, but got like close to it. And that was like a holiday release at like 10 a.m. You know, like everybody's watching movies over the holidays. But and then for general audience purposes, to come that close to
half the runtime, also like,
yeah,
you know, like,
but to come
very heavily marketed publicly, you know, like
to come that close to competing with a movie like that with their pretty much their hottest asset, Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
The general audience, like, for all intents and purposes, like, this is a re-release. This movie already came out. What's Zack Snyder? That's the first thing that I got asked today. Like, what's the difference between this and the 2017 version? Like, just imagine if you had a new film that was, and he said it's going to be primarily nightmare-based, Justice League 2, with a fan base. They have, what, 1.5 million tweets trending at some point last week, like beating like the daily Endgame record. Like, imagine if WB took that marketing tool, that free marketing tool, paired it with an entirely new Zack Snyder Justice League film that was just a sequel to a movie that was just well received, and embraced this fandom, put their own marketing dollars into it. And also for Zack Snyder's Justice League, we saw no advertising from WB. It was all just HBO Max and the official.
Even like when it came to like just Twitter handles, like everybody under the AT&T umbrella was pushing it except WB.
And they like you go on their YouTube, Warner Brothers,
YouTube, TNT drama pushing it. Why would they push it? There's no reason.
Nothing.
But they did.
Like only HBO Max YouTube has the trailers on it. Like,
and all of the real fans see that. And I mean, you guys are part of this fan base that made this happen. It's an angry fan base too that I think will have no problem just destroying every property they put out that is not related to this, that they ignore. So it's like, okay, do you want to have like review bombs? Do you want to have just like every terrible review? Do you want to have no visuals on what you put out? Because people are going to be angry if they're just like, they ignore what people like and they put out what they don't want.
Yeah.
You don't want it to be that way, you know?
No,
like,
it just will be. I mean, that's the internet.
Well,
like,
that's my worry, right? Like when Wonder Woman 84 came out, like it got trashed, and there's a lot of stuff that's not great about the movie, but like I do worry about that, right? Like if they take the Flash movie and go a whole different direction with the same actor, you're gonna have people trashing it, right? And it's like whether, I mean, even with Chris loving the Flash, like it could be terrible if they just decide they want to do whatever they want to do and they bring in that timid, Ezra Miller rather than, where he is in the Snyder Cut. So like,
right.
That's my biggest worry with the whole thing. I really hope that the DC, properties, universe, whatever you want to call it, like all those movies succeed. But I feel like right now you have so many of these movies that are catering to the generic, fan base, like not fan base, just population. I mean, even like Black Adam, right? I hope The Rock's gonna be awesome as Black Adam. Looking at, you know, some of the comics and things like that, it feels like he would make a good character. But to me, I feel like that casting was made because it's The Rock. And you look at all the movies that he produces or he stars in that are huge. So like, again, I'm really hoping that's not the case. And like,
and it's also in that Shazam world. So, you know, it's like, and I love Shazam. Like, it's a great movie. Don't get me wrong. But like,
Gonna be a lot of winking at the camera type stuff.
Yeah, a lot of comedic, like, you know,
you're gonna get the people's eyebrow when he's fighting.
Right. So. Oh, you know that's happening.
It will definitely be a general audience, type film, and that's fine. If you, I mean, you know, if you like that stuff, it's fine. It's just,
why it's like you've got the multiverse.
We won't both
use HBO Max for the Snyder stuff. Like, you can satisfy both parties. And even like we've kind of talked about too, the next Justice League movie, if it's primarily nightmare based, like you can get lean with that budget, like shoot it on a huge sound stage, because that's what it is in the nightmare sequence. And
too bad they don't have or maybe they can get the same stuff, but what they were doing with the Mandalorian, put them all in a bubble.
They've talked about, people have talked about using that tech for it, which would be a good fit in my opinion. But so all that to say,
and just to address this, we like Ryan said, I enjoy Shazam. Like, that's the thing. Like, I enjoy things outside of Snyder, but the Snyder stuff is what I love, and you know, it's like I want both. And but when you say, well, you can't have that article, because we just don't want you to, especially well, it's such a milestone right now. It's so huge in the zeitgeist. It's like, and you're just like blindly saying, nope.
Brad Paisley tweeting about it. Like, what?
It doesn't make any sense, and it's just, I don't know.
Well, she also says things in that article.
Release the Snyder Cut. I'm gonna bring it back up. They need to release them. I don't understand. They're gonna release the Tina Turner documentary numbers the next day, and they're not gonna release this. Yes, it's freaking stupid.
She mentions in that article, like, we appreciate everything Zack's done, but this is the conclusion of his trilogy or something of that sort. Like, it's not even a trilogy, first off. Like, it's just, it's brutal. I was also looking at IMDb again today. And, you know, Godzilla vs. Kong came out last week. Guess what the #1 movie is still on IMDb? Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Yep.
Guess what the #3 movie is? The original Justice League, because people are trying to figure out what the difference is. Like,
or they actually clicked it. They're like, why are people saying this is so good?
I think I did see that as far as streaming, one of the like streaming third-party streamers were showing that Justice League was like #1, and then like theatrical was like #3 or 4 that week that it came out, because people were like returning to it, you know? Just to compare. Or maybe they were confused.
That's what I think. Well, it's very confusing. On HBO Max, it's very confusing because it happened to us last night. We were watching part 2. When you start to type in Justice League, like all you see is the new like extended cut or whatever, and the Ultimate Edition, and then you see Justice League. Well, then when we clicked into the Justice is Gray, like it took me forever to figure out how to get back to color. Because we started watching it for a while, and then we were just like
broken now.
We were like, let's go back to color, because again, Kelly had only watched a little pieces throughout, and the colors.
You're like I can't see. I can't even see what's going on.
Like all the detail. Like there's really detailed pieces, other pieces I couldn't tell. So then trying to get back, it was just really confusing because it just kept showing me the Ultimate Edition, like, and then Justice Gray. It didn't show a colored one. So finally made it back, but. Yeah, maybe people
it's wild. The IMDb thing, Godzilla vs. Kong breaking headlines this weekend with like biggest box office in forever, and it's still #2 on IMDb to Zack Snyder's Justice League that came out 18 days ago. Yeah, it's nuts. Like, how could you possibly choose to not capitalize on the success of this movie?
Yeah, it's lunacy. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Yeah. But as long as that's the thing, as long as, you know, Zack is still seems like he's part of the push, And and in my opinion, as long as he's a part of it, we'll keep pushing for it. If he says stop, we'll stop.
Yep.
You know?
Even today, he put out a Vero post. It looks like he's on vacation. He was like just hanging out or something, and he had the tablet out watching the movie.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see that stuff. So all that to say, release the Snyder Cut numbers, restore the Snyderverse, all the hashtags that are flying around right now. All right, so let's shift gears here a little bit and talk some Marvel Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Britt's time to shine.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I'm gonna kind of turn this over to Britt, and since he's the expert, and let him kind of lead the conversation here. So
no, you're
good. On, man.
Again, I enjoy the Marvel stuff. Again, no, I don't hate on the DC stuff. I love the DC movies too. But Marvel's kind of been the one thing that I've really attached to, because growing up, like we mentioned on some of the other podcasts, like I grew up on the animated Spider-Man series and X-Men. Like that was what I watched all the time. And so it was cool in those series, especially like the last season of Spider-Man, where they started going through the multiverse and you started seeing cameos from Iron Man, Captain America, things like that. So to see that over here in the Marvel universe has just been really cool. And so the thing with these, and I think that, and I want to get your guys' opinions on this, of like so far at a really high level, what have you guys thought about this one compared to WandaVision? Because I think in this one, I've taken a step back, right? With WandaVision, just like we talked about, we were trying to theorize and jump down all these holes, and which led us to disappointment. So like, I think with this one, I've taken that step back. I've kind of just said, I'm going to watch it for what it is. I'm going to pick up on a bunch of different little Easter eggs, cameos, things like that. But I'm not going to try to think of what's the last episode. What are we leading to in this one, and just kind of like it for what it is. So like, kind of to go around the room first, Ryan, how are you liking the series, and as comparing it to like WandaVision, are you on above that curve or below?
So yeah, when we reviewed WandaVision, like I said, the first 3 episodes, I guess, of WandaVision, I was so far out. Like I appreciated the fact that they were trying to do something different, but I don't know. It didn't feel, until the Pietro reveal, just didn't really feel like it was gonna go anywhere like material to me. And I just kind of felt like I was watching like a stylized decade by decade TV show, and there wasn't much more beyond that. Then the Pietro thing happened, and it was like, oh, okay, like we're gonna get some mutant stuff. Like, my perception of that show like totally changed based on when that door opened and we saw our first Fox. Well, what we thought was our first Fox Universe character.
Boner.
So I was all in at that point. Obviously, we kind of went episode by episode with that one. And we kind of and like everybody, it kind of seems like gave it a little bit more credit than than it was due, as far as like expectations and all that. With this show, I do want to say, and it's just because I'm being honest, the timing of this show coming out right when Zack Snyder's Justice League came out, because I am like, I love all comic book stuff, but like Brandon kind of mentioned earlier, like the Zack Snyderverse stuff, like that's where my heart is on this. I'm sure you have things where you're just like, oh, yeah, this is my thing. And I feel like that kind of created a little bit of like, it's difficult for me to like watch something that I've been anticipating for 3 years, 4 years, and then jump into this kind of a thing, where considering that in the last series, we like way overhyped it, So I will say I'm enjoying the action in this series. Production value is solid. But it's just one of those things where I'm like trying to really temper myself with anything in this show, because I just don't want to be like super let down again at the end of the show.
I get that, especially with some of the letdowns we had in the last one. And I get the whole, going up against Justice League, right? Like we talked about this before too, in text and stuff. Like literally, you had Justice League drop on Thursday, first episode of Falcon Winter Soldier on that Friday. Like we already knew that was going to be something where, yes, average fans, things like that, they may watch both. They may pick which one they're going to watch first, but definitely the true Snyder fans that are going to watch, Justice League 9-10 times, like
or 15 or 16.
They're going to put Falcon Winter Soldier a little further down on their list. And we'll get to that when we talk to Brandon. But so Chris, what are you thinking so far? Did you also temper your thoughts there?
Yeah, I definitely did. I think, everything you were saying was kind of going through my head before, like took a step back, kind of tempered my expectations. Didn't want to do any type of theorizing on this and just, see what I get and take it. I'm kind of middle of the road on the series so far. There's things I definitely really like and appreciate. Like you and Ryan had mentioned, like the production value is definitely there, especially opening into that first episode, seeing Falcon kind of doing his thing. It was cool, that's you don't really see something of that outside of, these blockbuster movies. So it was cool to see that we got that. Whereas WandaVision, I kept like waiting for where's the MCU feel to hear, because even when they went into the real world in that, I still felt like I'm watching like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or something. Like this just feels like a network television thing, whereas this right away has felt real to the MCU for me. So like that's cool. I really like the acting. Sebastian Stan is great. I'd love to see him in more things outside of the MCU. I really like him as an actor. I think he's got some good moments in this, and I do think him and Anthony Mackie play off each other well, and I kind of like their dynamic, and I think Anthony Mackie's really good. I like him in most anything that I see him in. But I mean, I guess like as far as the stakes that are there, the villains, this, Red Hand thing, like I don't care too much. Like none of it has me invested. It is cool to see little things they put in of, kind of what they did with Thanos of there's a villain that maybe isn't so black and white and you could find something to agree with. And, you're almost kind of picking sides. And Marvel's done a good job of doing that in the past. And I can see that they're doing that again here. And it's cool. It's just, it hasn't really brought me in yet. But I do like that they brought Baron Zemo back. I mean, he was a character that in the comics was like a pretty big deal and a cool villain to have. And then the way they brought him into the MCU is like, okay, he's here and it's great casting and he's gone. So having him come back is cool. And I hope that they can kind of give that character some justice that's due. He's a cool villain to have and he was wasted until this point, and hopefully they can do something with it. So there's some cool things there. Just overall, I'm putting on this show just because it's something that fits my interest of just like nerdy Marvel comic things, but mainly just to be on here talking with you guys about it. It's kind of like my number one. All right, I need to watch it. But yeah, I mean, I'd say I'm pretty middle of the road, and they definitely need to teach Anthony Mackie how to hold a gun, and then we'll be a little better.
Of course,
yeah.
Give it the obligatory weapons criticism from Chris.
Yeah. Emily Van Camp's gotten a lot better, but Anthony Mackie it's not his fault. It's whoever's telling him what to do.
He needs to go to the shooting practices like with Keanu Reeves, right?
Yeah, Taron Butler out there in California. Yep.
So what about you, Brandon? What about you, man?
Well,
oh boy,
I started. I
did you watch it?
Right before this podcast, I turned on episode 1.
Yeah. So how about that Winter Soldier?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I mean, I really like Falcon's like flying around. It's really cool. And
Black Falcon.
Black Falcon. Yeah. No, I like Ryan. My enthusiasm for anything just waned after Snyder Cut came out because I just only wanted to watch that. And it's not that I wasn't excited for this show. Well, it wasn't. I wasn't excited for it. And it's just two characters that I don't have a lot of vested interest in. But if it had came out at a different time, I would have been more enthused or at least more motivated to watch it. It's just, you know, like Chris was saying, specifically just to get on here and talk about it. But it's felt like homework for me.
So Snyderverse is your blip, and we're post blip.
Right. Yeah. Well, kind of.
Yeah. At the moment.
So I started it today. And I'm 1.5, and I don't care. Y'all can spoil it. I don't. That's the thing. You could tell me how it ends. I do not care. And you know,
it's a crossover with Nightmare.
Wow, Brandon, tell us how you really feel.
I'm not saying that I think it's bad. I don't have the enthusiasm for it, and so, yeah. I mean, what I've seen so far, I've enjoyed mostly, and I think Chris was saying this, that it feels a little TV showy as far as, I mean, it is a TV show, but it feels a little low budget like that. I watched the train or whatever, that sequence when they're battling on top of the trucks, I guess. Yeah. Transfer trucks. That was terrible. As far as the way it was executed, it was just bad. But I'm interested to see the dynamic that is being set up with the new Captain America, with, you know, one of Chris's his I guess little man crush's son. I guess, I don't know if you have the same affection that you have for Wyatt as you do Kurt, but
no, I'm jealous that you get to hang out with him so much.
Yeah.
Hate that guy.
I am interested in that dynamic because that's a cool dynamic to have for the show, especially considering the other two characters in play. And then, I mean, so I haven't got to the well, what I assume is it Zemo? Is that the guy's name?
No.
Zemo.
Zemo.
You just call him whatever you want to call him.
That's how they say it in Ralston.
Zemo. Yeah, I haven't got to him yet.
Can we all talk about
maybe
how,
when you
go ahead.
Go ahead, Ryan.
No, I was gonna say, why would they cut Bucky's hair? Why would you do it?
I was saying that before this show even started. I was like,
yeah,
he's not Bucky to me without the hair.
Exactly.
Like, he's just Sebastian Stan.
Oh, come on.
Especially if you can't even see his arm. It's like he's just a dude. You know?
I mean, like, we do get some flashbacks. We do get to see him with the hair.
I know.
Flashback
my
was
favorite
cool.
parts, Britt.
Yeah.
They've been my favorite parts.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've only seen one so far, so it seems like there's more.
I think it was the first one was the real big one that still got in my memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna talk about a lot of those kind of pieces. And so, like, I think that with this one, you know, kind of going off of what Kevin Feige and those guys were talking about, of the fact that you can watch these shows, and this is something I think maybe hurts the show a little bit. They said that you can watch these shows or you don't have to watch these shows, right? You can still watch the MCU, and these aren't going to play any effect on them, right? We're going to get some more story, some backstory, some fillers, but they're not going to change to where if you don't watch them, you're going to miss out something in the series. So I think that now that we know that, because I don't remember that being said at the beginning of WandaVision. I think it was said kind of like halfway through or towards the end when people were kind of disappointed with the fact that we didn't see a Mephisto or a big bad or something like that. So I think kind of keeping that in mind, I don't think we're going to see the next MCU villain, but I do think it's almost like, and we'll talk more about this towards the end of this, but I do feel like it's almost like they're trying to build a new MCU on Disney Plus, kind of like they did with the Defenders on Netflix. And so it could be that they're going to run two parallels, you know, with the movies and with the Disney Plus stuff. So, you know, we'll talk a little bit about that, but I think that that's something that I'm having to, again, temper my thoughts, because you think of all these cool places they could kind of go with it. And Chris, you kind of mentioned, and you guys were talking about it, but like some of the sequences, especially like the open sequence with the Falcon, like you can see the budget and you're starting to see like, okay, Sam now knows how to do more, right? He's not just that sidekick of Captain America. We also got to see the return of the Leaper. So George St. Pierre, you know, was in Civil War for just that brief moment when he was fighting Captain America.
He's a really good fighter. He fought really hard.
So he's back, and the Leaper does play a role in some villain teams and things. And again, I kind of want to hold some of that back of where they could possibly go. But you know, with that, like we're starting to see some cameos throughout here, and we're seeing some pretty big budget related and scenes. But I mean, what do you guys think? Like with that opening sequence, and we'll kind of lump it in with kind of the truck fight as well. Like, do you think that they're actually starting to use some budget in there? Do these things look like really cool, or, you know, is it something where they got to step it up a little bit more?
I think I already said what I thought. I'll let y'all say it.
Yeah, I agree with Brandon on the truck scene, but I did enjoy and I'm not I've been very vocal about the fact that Falcon is just not a character that like interests me particularly. If I was going to pick a character in this that I would have any kind of connection to, it would be Bucky. But the opening sequence with Falcon flying, I thought it was pretty amazing for a
TV show. I'll say that. I thought that was good. Pretty well executed. Cool aerial combat.
Me, like Star Wars dogfight kind of vibes.
Yeah.
Which was cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Chris?
Yeah, I mean, that opening scene, definitely cool and impressive. And typically with any movies and shows, I'm not somebody that gets really impressed with just like a visual action sequence. But I did take notice of it, and it stood out of like, okay, like they've got some budget to this, and we're seeing something cool with like a TV show. So that looked great. And it's kind of been a mixed bag for me. I think they started out really strong, but a lot of the stuff since then, as far as the action sequences go, especially like you guys kind of mentioned that truck scene, it's like I think they need to step it up, not even in just like, you know, the filming execution and how they kind of like put it together, but even just how they write it. Like Bucky jumps in front of one truck, like 10 feet away from their driver, trying to be close to get into the back of the other. It's like, why did you go to the back of the one that's in the back? What are you doing? So like some of the stuff's like, I don't know what they were thinking writing this. Like maybe I'm being like a little nitpicky. Yeah. I don't think I am. I think it's stupid.
You're just thinking logically.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
So I don't know. They're gonna like
Kelly mentioned
more
the
into
same thing when they fell off the truck and they hit a car that was behind them. It was like,
yeah,
why would you still be following a truck with people fighting on top?
The only thing that I could think of is that they don't say this, but the fact that the person that they thought was a hostage was, you know, not. The only thing that I can think of is that, okay, this was a bait. Like they knew that they were there, so they were trying to trap them, and so that's why. But for Bucky to do that, it's like, why are you being dumb, bro? Like, you know, he doesn't know that, so it doesn't make any sense. Regardless if they were trying to trap him, that's just a dumb move on Bucky's part.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I would just say for everybody that's hanging out in chat or watching this later, we are reviewing all 3 of the first episodes. So I know we're talking about episode 1 stuff and 2 stuff. I'm sure.
Well, y'all are.
Yeah, we're gonna mash a lot. That was part of what the first half of episode 2, right? So we're gonna get some mashed up some pieces in there. But yeah, so like again, kind of going from that and going back to the fact that I feel like what we should have expected with all of these shows is the fact that these are characters that are not main characters. These are not Tony Stark. These are not Captain America, right? These are kind of our side characters, and they're giving us backstory. So I love the fact that they can have a medium where they can do that, right? They can go back and go, okay, let's give some more story. And I kind of want to talk about Bucky's backstory that we're seeing so far, because to me, Bucky was not necessarily like my favorite character, but at the same time, like Winter Soldier is one of my top 3 Marvel movies. Like the tone of it, I mean, it had like jumps in there that you can watch. So it's your number 1. And again, it's hard with the Marvel because I have like different pieces I like out of every movie, but it's top 3 in there. And I feel like his tone in that movie is so like,
dude,
scary, crazy, intense.
That's the shot when he's chasing him on the roof and he turns back and catches the shield.
Yeah.
Like that's like what I think about from that movie. And it's awesome.
So with this, I'm glad that we can kind of get into Bucky's story, because yes, he's been in a couple movies. Civil War, we got a little bit more of the backstory of what he did, but we didn't get the whole 90 years of what he's done, right? And I feel like they're trying to dive into that, and we'll get way more into that as we go. But so I want to kind of go around, and we'll start with you, Chris, first. Like with Bucky's kind of nightmares that he's having, right? So he's having nightmares about what he's done. He's having to go to therapy about it. Like, what do you think about just some of those sequences, as well as kind of where they're going with his backstory?
Yeah, I mean, those are high points for me, especially in that first episode, getting that first kind of like nightmare flashback. Like, I was like, okay, we're back to like Winter Soldier. Like, and
we're talking about nightmares here, Brandon. You can get excited.
With a K, is it with a K?
Yeah, really red toned. But yeah, I mean, that was like a really cool
Neil
sequence.
write that? Okay. Pity. Inside joke.
Do your laugh.
Yeah. Sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
I'll continue. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the flashback stuff with Bucky's cool, and he's an interesting character, and that is one thing I do like about this show, is that you're seeing a little bit more of, you know, what happens in these characters' lives, and it's a little less of just like the hero saving the day. Like, you're seeing that like he has struggles, and you know, like he lived another life, and he has people from his past, and he's having trouble acclimating, and he's not an okay guy, and you can understand why. And they're not forgetting about his backstory of like, oh, he killed a ton of people and he was really good at it. Like, they're making sure you remember that, and he remembers that, and you're seeing all that. So that's cool.
Yeah.
And they're doing it with Sam too. You know, you're kind of seeing the dilemmas with his family, and I don't really care to see any of it, but it is, you know, it adds a little bit more of a human element, and I appreciate that. So all those things, I think it's cool that it's there. I like that they can expand the universe. It just, none of it is making like a show that I want to watch over and over. And I get that like it's hard to do that, but I don't know.
Yeah, I am hoping that we're going to turn the corner with that, right? Like, I think we're starting to hint at a bunch of stuff, but I'm hoping we'll turn the corner in the last, you know, there's only 6 episodes, so like episode 5, 6, maybe even 4. Like, I'm really hoping we'll get the action, we'll get the, you know, real person we're after, and that kind of stuff. But
how do you guys feel like in comparison, knowing that this was supposed to be the initial release in terms of the Marvel TV, like Disney Plus shows? How do y'all feel about like this like 3 episodes in comparison to where we were 3 episodes in with WandaVision? I think it started to turn for all of us, or most of us, like at the 4th episode of WandaVision.
I was gonna say it's not that hard for me to be better than the first 3 episodes of WandaVision.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean,
well, and I think
the thing that I'll give WandaVision is that it was so different, and that's kind of what I kept saying even during those first 3. It's like, well, they're at least trying something different. But
when I think the other side is, and we talked about this with WandaVision, like the slate and the schedule would have been totally different. We would have had Black Widow going into this show, and then we would have had WandaVision later. So like, I feel like watching this, you can tell that this was supposed to follow the MCU and then get into the quote unquote weirder, different type shows, because this does feel kind of like it's just coming right off of a movie, right? Like, you got the main characters that you recognize from the movies, you know, kind of what's going on there. But yeah, I don't know. I like a lot of the cameos and things that they're bringing in. But I definitely think that, you know, it needs like one more episode to kind of get that, like, what are we doing here kind of situation right now. Like, I don't feel like we know what we're doing here. The Flag Smashers just don't really look like this giant threat. Like, sure, they stole some stuff, but like, they're not like going to end the world type stuff.
Find it, I kind of like, I don't know, this just seems so dorky to me, to be honest. Like, I don't know. Like, they got the serum, but I don't know. They're not catching or grabbing me yet.
I do appreciate that Marvel, not only in this, but they also did in WandaVision, and it's part of the Flag Smasher kind of, you know, goals and their, you know, reasoning behind things, is Marvel's not shying away from that they did the blip, and they really are bringing it back and back and back, and they're harking on it. So I like that it's not going to be something that they just like, yeah, we did that a few movies back, but like, we're past it, we're doing this now. Like, they really are universe building, and they're you know, keeping that as a very relevant and big deal, which would make sense. So like, it's cool that they're kind of keeping that such on the forefront of everyone's minds, because if they weren't doing that in these series, like, I think it would be kind of easy to forget of like, oh yeah, that blip happened, it was like a really big deal.
When I think and to be honest, I think that's what's going to happen in the movies, right? Like, I don't feel like they're going to explain too much in the movies. I think it's going to be like we saw with Spider-Man, where it was more of a joke for 5 seconds. Whereas, like, I think that this is where Marvel can explain that. And I do love that that's what they're doing. Like we saw with Maria Rambeau and, you know, coming back and her mom's dead now. Like, there's going to be things that happen during the blip. And so now, I mean, you mentioned it earlier with like Sam's backstory, right? Like, yeah, it's not something we necessarily need, but at the same time, seeing that, hey, when people blipped out, there was people that were living for 5 years having to struggle because maybe the husband that was the person making the money blipped out, or the wife or whatever, right? And like, you're in a whole new situation. Sam comes back and there's the whole scene where he's trying to get a loan. He's like, well, where were you the last 5 years? He's like, well, I was blipped. I wasn't here. You know, and that whole thing of like, you know, it's going to affect a ton of people. And so I do like that they're able to do it here, and it won't necessarily matter too much in your movies. You won't have to harp on it in the movies, which leads back to what we were talking about earlier with the whole Bruce Wayne paying for Martha's house and keeping up bills and stuff, like where he brought up, and I thought that was kind of a funny thing to bring up, of like, hey, like, didn't Tony Stark give you a bunch of money and was paying you salaries to save the world? And it's like, nope, just people kind of helped us out along the way. You know, so
I always think about that with superhero movies like Spider-Man, like, and Batman, all these characters, especially a Batman who's like out at night most of the time doing Batman stuff. And then he's like, you know, trying to be, you know, Bruce Wayne, billionaire, philanthropist type thing. It's like, I stayed up one night all night. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. For 3 days.
You're not Batman.
You'll never be Batman, Brandon.
Oh, listen, there's a point where I just can't continue. Like, my suspension of disbelief has to be broken. All right. And that's where it is. I'll believe that you dress up like a bat and you beat up criminals all night. But when you're doing both, you're not getting any sleep.
The endurance.
Come on.
You just needed to be the person that had like a trust fund, right? Where you can sleep all day, fight crime at night.
Exactly.
You
don't think he's on some HGH? Come on. He fights Bane.
Basically, what I was saying is not to be completely dismissive, but I do like that. I like that they at least address it, because, you know, it's something that, you know, you don't think about, or people usually they don't address it. So, because it's like all these people are spending all this money and time saving the world, but they're not getting paid for it. So they got to have, you know, how does this, I mean, typically they're not, unless, you know, I guess maybe that's how they're doing this with, I mean, I don't know yet. Maybe they have established, but the replacement Captain America seems to be a, you know, military funded type position. Maybe, I don't know. But
yeah, they're hitting that.
But yeah, the ones that are doing it on their own, it's like, well, like Peter Parker, he's just, you know, especially the ones that have secret identities. Yeah, you know, you can't. Who's this go out to? Spider-Man. Write this check to Spider-Man. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, no. So we kind of look at that, and where we're looking at the backstory with Sam. Like, one of the biggest things was his struggle, right? His struggle to take the shield, take up the mantle as Captain America. You know, he was chosen, right? Like, when Steve came back, he was like, "Look, here's the shield." He could have easily given it to Bucky. Bucky checks all the boxes, right? Super soldier, crazy arm.
Should have done it.
He knows how to use the shield.
Steve is the Ann Sarnoff in the MCU, just making the wrong decisions. But continue, Britt.
so again, and you know, and in the comics, both have wielded the shield, so it's not a surprise either way. But you know, I think that's going to be this underlying story, like where we saw in WandaVision, and it was the grief of her losing vision and having to accept it. This is what the underlying story of this series is, right? Of him taking up the mantle and understanding that he's good enough to be Captain America. And then again, Bucky understanding that he's a good person, even though he's done all these bad things.
Or maybe Bucky becomes Captain America because he should.
Maybe.
Get in the comics.
So the one scene that I loved, and I kind of want to go around the room and just get your guys' thoughts on kind of what's going on in that piece with Sam and Bucky and all of that. But, you know, there was the scene where he gives up the shield, and then you see him down in the museum area just where we saw Bucky, right? So we already had this kind of flashback of Bucky standing and looking at all the Captain America stuff and trying to remember. And then now we kind of get that same exact scene, but it's Sam standing there looking at all the Captain America stuff. So I thought that was kind of a pretty cool nod back to that stuff. But so like, again, you guys have already kind of said a little bit, but we'll start with you, Ryan. But like, I mean, what are your thoughts here with Sam just thinking he's not good enough, giving up the shield? You know, is that something that
he's right.
you think should have happened after that movie, or? Does it take away from
it takes
Steve
the
Gibson?
emotional? Yeah, so it kind of stripped the emotional element. As much as I wanted him to give it to Bucky, I'm still angry about it, as you can see. Yeah, I just feel like it kind of undermines. It kind of feels a little bit like, to a lesser extent, like in The Last Jedi when Luke like tosses the lightsaber at the beginning of the movie.
I can see the parallel, definitely to a lesser extent. Like it's not as egregious to me, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
And I get they're doing it for story purposes, but yeah, I feel like it could have been so much cooler to, as much as I would prefer Bucky to be Captain America, to actually have him like to open the series with him. Maybe he opens as Captain America, then something happens where he loses the shield or whatever. Just not to pull the rug out from under that moment. At the end of that game. But yeah,
no, I get that. How about you, Brandon? Same kind of thoughts?
No, I mean, yeah. Well, I definitely think it. To me, it kind of. I mean, I get what he's doing, well, I guess I'm sure in his head, he just felt like, and I can agree with. He just felt like this is the move to make because nobody can fill these shoes, and we're gonna kind of immortalize this character, and then we'll just move on. And Cap will be Cap. And I agree with that. He had no idea. And obviously that's part of the story. He had no idea that they were going to kind of undermine that decision very quickly. But yeah.
And how about you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I like the move that they did with it. Like everything that Brandon just said, I agree with. It all makes sense to me that he gets this shield and he kind of feels that he and nobody else could fill those shoes, and this deserves, Captain America deserves to have like the shrine, and it's like it's a monument at this point. It's a symbol. So all that makes sense to me, and like I like that we see this self-doubt, and I like that we see it mirrored in Bucky, and like that that therapy scene we see later on where he kind of like, has that bit of weakness where he says like, maybe he's wrong about you, and if he's wrong about you, then he's wrong about me. Like I really like that scene. I thought Sebastian Stan was great there, but we also see other things that kind of call back to this where, they're kind of dancing around of, anybody who's got this mantle, they're shown to be this high and mighty, but maybe they aren't. They're not perfect. It gets in their head, and it kind of reinforces what was special about Steve, especially because you got two guys that are like obsessed with him. So I liked that aspect of it where, he held Steve in such a high regard that he didn't feel that he deserved it or anyone did. And you kind of see that, brought back up throughout the series.
Yeah, absolutely. So that kind of led into this announcement. We've kind of hinted around it too, but it led into the closing scene of them announcing the new Captain America, John Walker. So in the comics, just a little bit of backstory. John Walker is U.S. agent. He's originally kind of a villain, and then he's got another group that he's working with. They're always trying to take down all these big rallies and things like that. Eventually, he gets the mantle of Captain America. He starts to do some stuff that's not necessarily Captain America-esque, and then he turns into U.S. agent. So the suit that he is wearing is a nod directly to U.S. agent. The star being up on the shoulder rather than in the center, all that stuff. So I'm sure we'll get more of that as we go. But before we get into kind of like episode 2, and I would say his quote unquote somewhat of a redemption, what were you guys' thoughts? That first scene that came out.
Why would you pick that angle to shoot him from? Is the question.
Yeah,
The memes.
that actually made me go and look like, were the ears exposed in the old
I did the same thing.
Captain America costume? Because this guy had some Dumbo ears. I mean, I got Dumbo ears
I
too.
do too.
That's why I wear these types of headphones. But I don't know the rationale of using that because he looks not right.
Yeah,
Just say that.
no, I agree. I mean,
it didn't help that like I think somebody on Twitter or something like grabbed a screen grab, but then even like smashed it a little bit more. And that was the one that was like circulating.
I love the one where it's Carl from Up wearing the mask.
That's a good comparison.
What did you think, Chris?
Yeah, he looks weird. He looks real weird. I don't know. He's like, I kind of appreciate it at first because you don't want to like this guy. They portrayed him as just like somebody, as soon as you see him with this weird scrunchy face, you don't want to like him. And it was, you see from the point of view of the two main characters, like, oh, they don't like him. They don't like what he stands for and what was done to give him that shield. But right away, he's like this super nice guy, really friendly. You can tell he's doing the right things. He's a hero. And kind of with nothing other than like, he just got like frustrated and like a little impatient. All of a sudden, he's like, I'm a bad guy and these are my true like colors. And I don't know. I don't really get what they're trying to do with his character. And it's a pretty weak.
I haven't got to that part yet, but I know by the online chatter that people were like really hating him. And when they introduced him, I was like, maybe he takes a turn pretty quickly because he seems like an all right dude right now. But
yeah, I mean, everything about him, they paint him to be like, all right, dude, just, you know, just his backstory, the way he interacts with people, the way he interacts with people privately, the way he interacts with, you know, Falcon and Bucky, like everything about him, super nice, trying to do the right thing. And then he just like gets a little impatient of like, hey, come on. No, seriously, come on. And then he's like, well, I'm done ever asking. And then he's just a bad guy, basically, all of a sudden. So it was pretty weak writing for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see them needing to add more to it. And I'm sure over the next couple episodes, because again, we've already seen trailers, we've already seen pieces. The Falcon and Bucky have the shield. So they're getting it back at some point, right? So yeah, I think it's definitely one of those that, you know, we see him there kind of going into episode 2 a little bit. You see him getting interviewed. They talk about his backstory, 3 medals of honor, like, you know, the best kind of soldier he could be. You know, they tested him. So there's some theories here. Again, don't like to go down too many of those theories after what happened in WandaVision, but, you know, they tested him and he's off the charts. And all
I'm with you, Britt.
Yeah. So, you know, it could be he's already gotten some kind of super soldier serum. It could be that he's potentially, some people are saying mutant, but I don't think we're going to see mutants for a while. So I don't necessarily think that that's the case, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see when they kind of continue down there, because in the comics he does get the super serum soldier, and so that kind of like gives him his powers and stuff. So we'll see what happens here. So again, a little bit more backstory they give us. It kind of gives us a little more insight on him. He's a little more likable, right? Like, as far as, okay, he's just trying to be the best Cap he can be because the world needs a Captain America at this point. And then we get introduced kind of to Lamar Hoskins, which is Battlestar, kind of his sidekick, but I'll talk a little bit about that, but he's not really a sidekick. He's his partner.
Is it? Correct me if I'm wrong, and I wanted to talk about this. Is this right after the sequence where they show Walker like throwing around the shield and everything in the yard or in the?
Yeah. So this is after that.
I had an issue with that sequence. He's whipping that shield around like he is a super soldier, like. Yeah. But then, like right before that, they say he's not enhanced or whatever. I literally like went back and rewound. And like I was like, maybe I misheard that, because like there's like he's just ripping this soldier or shield around the yard, like bouncing it off trees and into tree. I'm like, how is he? You can tell me this guy's not like jacked up on something? Like, I had an issue with that.
Well, no, and I think that's going to be probably some of the story we potentially get, over time. I don't know. Maybe not. I mean, maybe we're going to see Sam throwing the shield the same way, and it's just with training, you figure that stuff out. But I think that there's going to be more to that of him being enhanced, but maybe not to the public being enhanced, right? Because if he's enhanced, he falls into the Sokovia Accords documentation and all of that, which could lead him not to be able to be.
Well, I'll say this, Britt. I've always liked your theories. I wish that they consulted you before making their shows, though. So
hashtag Mephisto.
Yeah. So we'll see when it comes to that kind of stuff. But so kind of, I mean, what are your thoughts now that we have this Captain America? We have another sidekick, kind of how we have with Falcon. I mean, does this feel like it's kind of somewhat overdone or anything like that with, having to bring in, a sidekick with similar powers and whatnot?
Yes. Yeah, has not done it for me at all. Like, I don't know. That's just my take, but I want to learn more about John Walker before you kind of like, I don't know, expand like they're expanding. Like the roster in the show is already getting to be huge, like especially with the last episode, adding in the last episode. But yeah.
So we have kind of the mention, and this is kind of just a piece that we saw in the trailers I thought was funny. So I want to get your guys' thoughts too about the line about the big three. So the big three being androids, aliens, and wizards, and then the comments that happened. But what did you guys think about that kind of in the series?
So I appreciate the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially consider we have so many Lord of the Rings characters in the MCU right now. There's quite a lot if you actually look them up and everything between Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. So,
you asking me or Chris or Brandon?
We'll start with Brandon because I know you've at least watched at this point, right?
I did. Yeah, I got that. What am I supposed to take from it though? Like the big three, like it.
Well, I mean, like, so they're saying, these guys.
You tell me what to think.
So right now they're kind of they're grouping everything into these three. But do you think that we're going to see potentially something that doesn't fall in these three? So you have androids, essentially Ultron, aliens being the T'Chari, and then wizards. Again, they mentioned Doctor Strange, Wanda, those kind of sorcerer type characters. But
what about Spidey?
Because he
humans.
Yeah. Which don't fall in DC categories.
This isn't DC, Brandon. All right.
Sorry. I mean, well, they're talking about villains, right? So, I mean, I guess they're talking about villains. Well, they're referencing. Maybe it covers both sides, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, are you hinting that you think it's going to play into some like?
This is amazing. It just goes across. Britt, what do I need to say? Like,
no, I'm just curious where your head is. Like, you brought it up for a reason. Like, are you thinking that they're going to use it as like another like a mutant thing?
I mean,
are we doing this again? Are you gonna get our hopes up?
No, I'm curious. Like, again, they haven't said it. So I mean, like, all right, I'll go over to Chris first. Chris, when we look at things like the super soldiers.
No, you're going to Chris second. You came to me first. I didn't deliver. Now you're going to Chris.
All right, Chris. We got to bring a Marvel person into this. So
there we go.
So when we have those three groups, right? You have characters like Captain America. He doesn't fall into one of these categories, like the Flag Smashers and other characters we're going to see. Do you think that this was purposely kind of put in
Stupid name,
here?
Flag Smashers. Sorry.
Well, that's because there was a character, a villain called Flag Smasher.
Britt, I got it. Don't worry about it.
You're good.
There we go.
Perfect.
So Chris, do you think that was put in there purposely because we're going to start to see maybe? And again, I'm not going down the path necessarily of mutants, but like, do you think that they purposely.
How do you smell a flag? What happens? It's like what?
Just give Brandon a few more minutes.
This is all I got to add to this.
That's better. It's much better. Is he gonna go again?
I'll see myself out, guys.
Brandon, I think it's time for a bathroom break.
Yeah, that big 3 line didn't mean anything to me.
I probably am gonna take a bathroom break.
Then now's the time, Brandon.
Just think it's a funny line to
I think they just use it as a funny line. I mean, I'm kind of maybe it's just I'm so bitter from WandaVision that I don't want to like think that anything is a drop for something else. But it's just struck me as kind of like a Marvel humor, just funny line to put in there.
Yeah, I do like the line about Lord of the Rings and him saying like, "Oh, I read that." Like,
this is the only moment that I've like really like. So again, it comes down to me not being a huge Falcon person, I think. But this is probably the only moment, like chemistry wise, where I like dug their interaction around it. Yeah. Everything else has just been kind of meh so far, and maybe that'll change where that relationship will develop more. But yeah.
Well, and I think that this kind of like feeds into this. Like, if you look at all the series, I have a feeling they're going to have an underlying like genre to each of these series, right? And like this one is the buddy cop one, right? Like you got the guy who's really good at whatever, and like I mean, Bucky is that old gritted person that's really good at what he does, and then you've got Sam, who's kind of the quote unquote young rookie type role in a buddy cop. And so like I feel like that's what they're trying to do with this, and sometimes it feels a little much. I mean, we saw in episode 3, again, kind of jumping around, but in episode 3, it was like, this is what we were supposed to do. I'm supposed to do this, like with every action movie, right? Like, so I think they kind of know that too, that they're hinting with it. So with what Brandon was saying, so we got the Flag Smashers. They're introduced. You guys mentioned it on the truck earlier, right? The big truck scene, which I agree with you. There's so many different pieces I did not like about that fight scene, just different things that just stood out. I'm like, why? But I do like that you got to kind of see 2 things. So one was just the power of these characters, right? Like they're hitting hard, but they're not like, to me, they don't come across as like strong as Steve Rogers, right? And Captain America. It's like the formula that they got is a little diluted, but they're still can take out normal people like they're nothing. And then the second part about that is we see, U.S. agent, the new Captain America, kind of come down, show off like, hey, I can do this a little bit, and do some of the stuff that Cap would do, like throwing the shield down and saving Battlestar and everything. But then the one I want to kind of focus on, because to me it kind of goes back to like Batman and some stuff like that, but he pulls out a gun and he actually shoots the dude with a gun, which is not something Captain America would ever do. So I want to start first with you, Brandon. We're going to go back to you because to me, again, I've got the issues where Batman had a gun in comic form, but like, what were your thoughts about that after having so much flack with Bruce Wayne, shooting up villains with his machine gun Batmobile?
After having so much flack, like getting flack?
Yeah, getting flack.
Because I don't have a problem with it.
So do you have a problem with Captain America pulling out a gun?
Well,
shooting someone.
In my head, I don't know why. I thought that Steve Rogers used a gun in the first movie. Maybe he didn't.
He probably did, like when in World War II when he was running.
You guys talking about Hacksaw Ridge right now, or First Avenger?
First Avenger, definitely First Avenger. No, I mean, as far as I assume that that's an intentional, like, beat to have. But if I'm being honest, freaking Falcon was killing folks like crazy in the opening sequence. So I don't really. Who cares?
True. Yeah.
That was what they were.
A lot of dudes.
Oh, comparing and contrasting Brandon reviewing Marvel versus DC.
Sorry, I don't mean to be like that. I'm just saying I don't think that I could see people having an issue with it. Maybe because it's Captain America. Maybe if they think that Captain America shouldn't kill, but I've never known that to be an established like thing of his.
I mean, considering he doesn't like you to cuss, language, you would figure like. Yeah,
but I guarantee. I mean, I'm pretty confident that he killed people in that first movie. I just haven't seen it in a long time. I think that's just like a trait for him that he has, like because he's like old school, But as far as the killing, I mean, he went to war, and so that's a different. People have different.
I could see that. How about you, Ryan? Is that so? We again seeing John Walker and now seeing kind of to start to see that other side.
Yeah, I think I'm internally, I'm hoping that John Walker goes off the rails in this role. And then there's kind of the struggle for Falcon to get the shield back from him. So my hope is that they kind of like slowly start leaning into him like becoming too violent or becoming, I don't know, doing like sadistic things. So maybe this is the beginning of that. But that would probably, that would probably be my hope, would be with how they're going to handle his character. If they were going to tie something like this in at a character level, that would be my.
I just Googled and he does use a gun in the first Avenger.
Yeah, I think he does when he's over there in Germany doing
killing Nazis.
Yeah.
Well, now this video flagged. Thanks, Chris.
I said it weird, so we're good.
So you put a G on the front of it.
Yeah, silent.
So with that kind of going, right? We had the big standoff with him going through. You're starting to see a little bit more of the new Captain America, maybe a different side of him. And so we had the truck scene, right? So then afterwards, they're like, "Hey, we're gonna pick you up, take you, and drive you." And then at this point, he's pretty much just begging like Sam and Bucky, like, "Hey, just team up with us." That way,
in the car, man. Get in the car.
When he kind of says it, like, it'd be awesome if you would be, if I had Captain America's old wingman on my side, right? So I want to kind of go to you, Chris, with this, but like, with that being stated, like, is that the turning point, or is that still something where it's like, meh? Like, is that something that kind of starts to make him look like the bad guy, to where the only reason he's reaching out to these guys is to have them on his side, right? So he can accept this Captain America mantle.
No, I mean, at this point, I was still kind of seeing him as like okay, we've got like a likable character after we were initially set up not to like him. We hadn't quite gotten to where all of a sudden he kind of like flipped that switch to just being like a jerk for no reason. Like, he's not quite a villain. He's just like unpleasant for no reason all of a sudden. But at this point, I still liked him, and I didn't really see like any backwards, intents or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I took that as kind of like,
I'm just trying
him trying to like, I don't know, like get down to their, like reach out to him, and
it feels like he knows that it's going to be an uphill journey getting them because of their relationship to Steve, and so he's just trying to do what he can to extend an olive branch. He knows the situation, but
yeah.
I don't know. You watched that far, Brandon?
Yeah, I did. That's probably maybe the last thing I saw.
One of the last things. So, and again, my notes may be way out of order within this, as I was kind of jotting them down. But so we saw that whole scene, and kind of them just be like, no, we're out of here. That's all you want, is you want our blessing, essentially, to be the Captain America. So they jump out. They go on about their way, which kind of leads us into the Isaiah Bradley story, right? So we see Bucky taking us to another place where there is another.
Spelled Isaiah wrong in the show notes, Britt.
Gosh, I know. I quickly jotted it.
Whatever, gremlins.
I know.
So we had him being introduced, and
put some respect on his name, yo.
Yeah, for everybody who doesn't know, Isaiah Bradley was known as the Black Captain America, with the truth, red, white, and black issues that came out. So essentially, after Steve Rogers disappears, they're doing more experimentation to create more super soldiers.
So can I ask a question before you get to this? Is that because he was called Black Captain America? Is that why Falcon has that line before this about Black Falcon and Black Kid?
Falcon. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a node, and they do a lot of little things like that throughout. So I'll kind of take it a step back real quick with to give you a little backstory on Battlestar. So Battlestar was a member with I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but it was before he was Captain America and before he was U.S. agent. He had another name. And he was kind of a sidekick there. And he actually turned into the new Bucky when he took over the mantle of Captain America. So Battlestar was Bucky. But again, there's a racial whatever. Where
they called Black Bucky?
Well, no, he was called, well, it was Bucky, but there's another term that's not very great. And so they decided to give him a brand new name as Battlestar and not call him a sidekick. Because at that point, Marvel was getting flack, which, as we all know, when you look at main character and sidekicks, there tends to be that those diversities between the two. So they ended up making sure in the comics, and this was back in I think the 80s or whatever, they called him his partner rather than his sidekick. And so in this show, they've made sure to not call him a sidekick. And even when they were sitting in the Jeep, from what I had seen online, they did that on purpose to make sure that they showed all four of them were at the same Jeep. There wasn't somebody riding up in the front of the Jeep, turned around talking to them. They were all on the same playing field because, again, same thing. Bucky's is not a sidekick to Sam, and Sam's not a sidekick to Bucky on that team too. So I think that with this kind of calling that out, right, the Black Falcon and being like, oh, well, are you Black Kid, or whatever, they're showing that too.
So follow-up question. I think I can't remember this is after before, but the White Wolf comment when he calls him White Panther, and he's like, no, White Wolf. What is that? I don't know, because I don't know this lore. So I assume, is that what they called?
Yeah, it was in
Wakanda. Yeah.
That was after.
Was it Infinity War they mentioned it or something?
Did they actually name drop that in the film?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was the White Wolf has rested long enough or something like that.
It was an after scene, and you see him come out without his
I remember that scene. I guess I just haven't seen it. Yeah. I've seen it one time.
Yeah, and he gets that moniker in the comics and everything too. So yeah, it's kind of, again, just a.
Can we talk about how his other arm was cooler too? All right, come on, guys.
The
effects are harder to do with that.
Yeah, gosh, it is. It is. So we got Isaiah Bradley. He's, again, they took 30 guys, they experimented. He's the only one that survives the testing. He gets the super soldier serum. As we can see in that scene when he throws that box through the wall, he's juiced up. It's to another level at this point, which I thought was cool when he mentioned he destroyed Bucky when they were fighting. So Ryan, with that scene and kind of going through there, do you think it's kind of interesting that they're, I guess at this point they're starting to bring in the super soldier serum and stuff, but that whole interaction, there's a lot of pieces to that. Do you think that that's something that was an interesting piece that they're pulling out, or?
So it didn't particularly appeal to me. I did have I was kind of confused because, and maybe you can explain this, but with the super soldier serum, don't they not age? Wasn't that why?
That's what I was actually going to ask next, is because that is because I know Cap is frozen in ice, and Bucky is as well for a time being, but then he's brought back in the 70s or something. Did they keep using him, freezing him, using him?
Yeah.
Okay. So it does seem like they do age. That's why old Cap is in game.
Yeah.
They just maybe they age a little slower. I don't know, but
yeah, they age a lot slower. But yeah, with those
kind of Wolverine situation, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. Yeah, story wise, I don't. I don't know. I'm still trying to the whole like super soldier serum thing just hasn't really like set the hook for me yet.
Yeah.
I'm like the thing that I'm most interested in this show is, and we'll talk about it. I don't want to get ahead, but like I've loved the Winter Soldier flashbacks, and I loved when Zemo used the like rusted metal, like all the keywords and stuff or whatever they're called. Like I don't know. I think it's just the like I love the Winter Soldier character, so like that's what I want to see more of. And I feel like Bucky's so like lighthearted now, like compared to what he was originally. In these movies, I don't know. I really like latch on to those moments where like we get to see like the like connection to like the dark past kind of thing. And maybe it's the DC fan in me, you know.
So if we kind of so if we transition kind of into that, right? So kind of from there we get the whole like you know, Sam gets arrested. Essentially, we've got some racial profiling, which again I think was crazy good, interesting that they decided to put that in here, right? Where the cops come up, Sam doesn't have ID on him, and it isn't until they recognize that he's Sam the Falcon that they're like, oh, sorry, you know, and then ends up being that Bucky gets arrested because he didn't go to his therapy session. They go to jail, and then they, you know, essentially the therapist comes in, breaks him out, and they have to have their session. So since you're the big Bucky fan, Ryan, like what did you think when that scene kind of went down with Bucky, with Sam, and their kind of interaction around that?
So I feel like this is the buzzkill comment, but one of the things that I hated the most in the I think it was the first trailer they put out where it closed with like the staring contest thing.
Yeah.
Because all right, so for this show, like I felt like they greenlit this show like based on Civil War when they're riding in the car together, and like they're in the back seat. Like that's what I felt like the whole reason they greenlit this show, other than like the shield thing at the end of it's just like because Marvel loves to do that, like the chemistry, like if they see good chemistry or chemistry they like, they, you know. But I hated that in the first trailer, that the staring contest thing. So like from the moment that he got arrested for the therapy thing, I was just like, all right, here it comes. I'm waiting for it. Like, I just don't have that the chemistry between them for me. Like it's just not there yet. Like I don't feel for their relationship or anything. Yeah. So, and I know they're trying to. It's one of those things. Maybe it'll take some time, like Vision did for me. But I'm just not there yet with like caring about their how they're tied together emotionally or whatever. Yeah, I think that answers the question.
It does. It does. So, what about you, Chris? Because you mentioned kind of that scene when Bucky kind of essentially breaks down a little bit. But
yeah, I mean, I like that breakdown scene. I like kind of getting a peek behind the curtains of they share some insecurities, but then, you know, more so Bucky at where he is at now and some of the darkness he's dealing with. It's not just, you know, the very literal stuff that he's done and been through. Mm-hmm. So I like that, and I really like that one moment where he kind of had that outburst. But like Ryan was saying, like it was just cringy watching like them sit closer and closer and then like share a laugh.
Like in between each other.
That was like a little weird. But
hey, buddy.
But I mean, I don't have the criticism of them not having chemistry the same way that Ryan does. Like, I mean, I think they play off each other well enough. I just don't like a lot of the writing that they do for it.
Yeah.
I think as actors, you know, they work for me in that aspect, but some of the writing there, I'm not a big fan of.
That is probably what it is for me, actually. More writing thing, because I like they. It's
almost like weird beats. Fine. Like they try to do a joke, and it's like it's almost like, you know, have you ever seen like they will show an episode or a clip of an episode of a show that typically has a laugh track, but they get rid of the laugh track and the timing just like feels weird that you're waiting for it. Yeah. And I almost feel like the writing is kind of set up like that. I'm like, what are we waiting for? Like, This pacing is weird. What's this tempo?
I felt that way with the Falcon and his sister. Like I felt like their writing was like very like weirdly timed and segmented, but
I could see that too. I mean, it's I think that with any of these series, like when it comes to a movie, right? You have like 2 hours, pack it in for 2 hours, and then when you get like a series like this, I mean, it's 5 hours, a little over 5 hours or so. So it's almost like they have so much they want to do, but then they have to cut it down, and then some of it does feel like it's not necessarily out of place, but it doesn't like mesh the way you would think it would. So I can definitely understand that piece. So kind of coming out of episode 2, we got the ending scene of Zemo, of him pretty much going, hey, if we're going to take down Hydra, we need to find somebody who knows Hydra. Yeah, spoilers, Brandon. We get Zemo in his cell, and for anybody who did not catch it or hasn't seen it posted anywhere online, Zemo's cell number is the same cell of Leia's cell number when she's on the Death Star. So
nice, that's cool.
Nod.
her cell phone number.
Yeah, her cell phone number, if you recall. The cell number when she is in jail, locked up.
That's cool.
But
Just trying to have the conversation.
Yeah. It's one of those things like numbers are a huge thing when it comes to any of these shows. I don't get down to that level, but you can definitely see some YouTube videos out there where people are like zooming in like 309. That's this episode, which is talking, or that's this issue of this comic book of whatever.
Well, Zack Snyder actually did that.
I was gonna say
with Lex's
TK
jumpsuit, TK 429.
Yeah, they do it. I
saw you moving your eyes up to Google for the picture, Brandon.
I was gonna pull it up, but doesn't matter.
So they do that all over the place. Like in Spider-Man: Far From Home, all the license plates on the cars were different issue numbers referencing the different elements that were in the movie and stuff. So they do it all the time. It just depends on how far you want to get into the Marvel stuff. So that kind of takes us in episode 3, where we really get to see Zemo, and I know that
that's my.
And so, Chris, I know you're a big Zemo fan, and so we finally get to see Zemo actually doing something, not just putting the puzzle pieces in play in Civil War and hoping that it all drops into place.
Yeah,
you actually get to see him like really showing off his abilities, right? Like,
and he's like back in the universe, and it's just cool that this character is no longer wasted. I mean, Marvel does a good job of like bringing out so many obscure and random and like just tons of real characters from the comics, which is cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, kind of like what you're saying earlier, with is it like too much with what they're doing, and Ryan wanting to see a little bit more of what's going on with US Agent not being distracted with other characters, but Zemo's like a big one. So it's cool that they kind of went back to him. They got him back out and he's in the universe.
Well, and the thing that I really think most people miss about Zemo, right? Like if you go back and watch Civil War, like one of the things you miss is the fact that like right at the beginning, like he's hunting down Hydra people and killing them. Like he's not just some little like chess player where he's like, oh, I'm going to show this video and then see if Iron Man doesn't like, Bucky or whatever. Like he's killing and hunting down the Hydra operatives to try to bring Hydra down because he doesn't like these empowered, enhanced people being out there. And so like it was really cool to see that breakout scene. Like I wish it would have been a little more. Like, because
it was pretty lame breakout. He's like, well, if I pass a note and a fight breaks out, then he can walk out the door. Like, oh, that's clever. I haven't seen something like that since Ocean's 11. Like, awesome. I would have really loved him rating the cleverness there. Super smart.
Yeah, I would have loved to see it at the level of like the Punisher breakout, right? Like back on the Daredevil stuff where he was, doing his. But again, it was kind of cool, him overpowering a guard and kind of getting through some of that stuff where it isn't just like he's this frail little dude. And within this episode, kind of looking at Walker with kind of starting to see his other side, right? He gets spit on when he's taking down the the safe house, and you see him snap for a moment.
Well,
So,
the
like,
really lame snap. Like he kind of like halfway yelled and like pushed the guy extra hard. It was like a middle schooler trying to be like physical for the first time ever. It's like, yeah, he snaps.
you know who I
He's
am?
like slightly unhinged, but it was like, okay,
Don't you know
like,
who I am?
cool.
Yeah. So like I think that's kind of what they're trying to do, right? Just little hints throughout. Like the thing is, okay, I'm gonna ask this other question. Did you guys watch Jessica Jones?
Yeah.
I think I watched all of that, yeah.
So the first season they had the cop, and I was trying to pull up his name and I couldn't find his name, but they had the cop that was taking the pills that kind of rage and went crazy. To me, it's similar to that, where like he was good. It was kind of doing good, but it was like a little bit, and then eventually he's just like psychotic, whatever. And I have a vibe where like that's what we're gonna see with him. Yeah. And I hope it just doesn't follow that same
dug the first season of that show.
Yeah,
it's good.
I did too. So we kind of saw that a little bit, right? And then we get kind of the note of Sam and Bucky starting to talk about, you know, let's take the shield back. And I'm curious, you know, as we look at the series, how they get the shield back. Where's that episode going to happen? I'm hoping it's probably, you know, I'm hoping it's episode 4, but I think it's probably going to be like 5. I think it's going to be a little further in. We got a lot going on with Zemo. So with Zemo, we also got kind of the comic book accurate costume of Zemo as he's going through all the cars and stuff. And so I was curious, I know Brandon left us, but what are your thoughts now that we're seeing that Zemo is not just some random person from Sokovia? He's a bit more than just that, being the actual Baron Zemo. So Ryan, how about you? Or we can go
no, I'll answer. So this is kind of the thing where like I don't have as much knowledge on the Marvel side of comics, and I realized from the trailers that, you know, that's probably what they were doing. But yeah, it was cool to see, kind of like you were talking about earlier, him start to get like physical and with the guard and stuff, and kind of like show that he's more than like this bitter dude that like is trying to manipulate his way to a soupsless world. But yeah, and I mean I dig the mask too. I think it's a cool look. The coat that he's wearing and stuff, like the collar coat and stuff that he's wearing. But yeah, I don't have the comic background in Marvel to like critique any of that.
But I mean, what about you, Chris? Like, was it kind of a shock, like that now we're finding out like, oh, he's rich, right? He's got his private jet. He's got his, you know, butler that would remind you of like Alfred with Batman at this point. But what are your thoughts there too? Is that kind of something that was a surprise, I guess, a little bit, or not?
I mean, it's been so long since I've seen the MCU iteration. Like I haven't really gone back and revisited things towards like nothing really shocked me. But you know, like I said, it was just cool just from reading the comics growing up, like that all of a sudden he's back and he's in the mix. But I actually kind of like the aesthetic and like the hood mask that they gave him in this better than what they show in the comics. I think in the comics it's a little bit more of just like this droopy kind of a tied into his shoulders thing, whereas I don't know, I really like the mask that kind of has a form. It's almost like a Rorschach kind of a vibe to it. So I like the aesthetic. Yeah.
I will say one thing that bothered me about let me tell you another thing that bothered me. So it's another like Winter Soldier treatment thing that kind of like I was like, oh really? When they were on the plane and Zemo says to his butler, like in German, I think he says like if it doesn't pass the smell test, you know, give it to you. And like, you know, he's saying it so that they don't understand, you know, what he's saying. But I'm like, doesn't the Winter Soldier like speak all of these languages and stuff? Like, I don't know. I was just like,
potentially.
It felt a little undermining.
Sokovian.
Yeah.
He may not know Sokovian, right?
Yeah.
But he knows Russian and all the other ones. But yeah, no, I think that was kind of one of those cheap jokes, right, to throw in there.
Yeah.
Within there. So I get that too. It didn't really hit
Respect my Bucky, man. Respect him.
So then we get into Madripoor. And so this is one of those things that, like, again, was hinted at before the series came out, to throw it out so everybody understands, like, that shows up a lot in the X-Men comics, that place. So this is the whole reason why people are saying, oh, this is where they're going to introduce Wolverine. This is where they're going to introduce X-Men. And I don't think they are, right? Like, I think that this is, I think that this is like a potential thing that they could come back to 2 or 3 years from now, right? Like, somebody could visit this city later, but I don't think that we're going to see anybody here that's going to, you know, look at that. But that's the reason why the name is such a big deal. They even hint at it with potential Wolverine, because they hint at the Princess bar. So the Princess bar, you see it in a neon light really quick. And so, again, comic backstory, Wolverine has a alias called Patch when he's in this city, and he's like in love, has a relationship with the owner of the bar. So technically he's a co-owner of the bar. And that was, again, one of those things that kind of went down this whole path of, we're going to get Wolverine, which we're not going to get Wolverine. Or if we do, wow, I'll be super surprised, but I don't think we'll get any mutants here. But that's what Madripoor kind of, the reason why so many people were saying a bunch before the series ever came out. So in Madripoor, we get kind of the power broker. We get talked about that, and Sharon Carter. So we finally get Sharon Carter back. We get a little bit of backstory. And so, you know, I'll start with you, Chris, on this. But, like, do you like how they're handling Sharon Carter so far in the series?
Yeah, I mean, I was never, like, super invested into her character in any of the other properties. But it was cool to see her be, like, a little bit more ruthless, and you're kind of seeing that she's dealing with, you know, legal issues, and it's just a little bit more real and grounded, and not just like, I'm here and I'm doing good and everything works. So that was cool. And that was something I always really liked about the Marvel comics growing up, was they just felt very real, and you saw everybody's personal issues. There was a lot of little things going on. So it's cool to start to see those things. I just can't find myself caring too much as I watch the show. I don't know. I mean, I like Emily Van Camp. She looked good with the action sequences. I do kind of find some of them laughable, where it's like, really? Is she just like holding that grown man of like 230 pounds of muscle down with like one arm? Like,
I was watching with Katie, and I was like, it was just sometimes like there's some sequences where they'll show her face, and then there's other like entire, like the aerial one where they're looking down at the shipping containers and she's fighting in between, and it's just like so obviously a stunt double.
Yeah,
and like it's just one of those things where, like, I don't know, break it up and show her, like,
I like her more as the assassin than like the brawler. Those parts were pretty like, oh, this is cool. She's like shooting this dude from like across an alley and through the window, and like took out these guys. And, like, agree. All that made sense. But then you kind of see like the other ones, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
And it is kind of like, it's strange that I mean, it's not strange they're using her because she's been in a bunch of the series, but like the style that they're using her as is more of a Mockingbird, which goes back to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the character was there. But that's same fighting style and stuff like that. So yeah, it's very interesting just kind of how, you know, to your point, she's tiny, like to take down that many people that fast all at once. But I guess that's kind of the look back at like Black Widow, I guess, is the vibes they're trying to give her.
Yeah.
To kind of say she's at that level. But I understand that part of it. And so while they're there in the shipping containers, so, you know, she's action sequences, all that, we learn about where they're actually starting to create more of this super soldier serum. And so the interesting part of that one is he mentions, right, like, how are you doing this? How are you getting this? And he mentions that he has, or he was able to take some samples from a test subject that worked and isolate them and everything. And I think that this is kind of the answer back to some of the other stuff. So like, one, this kind of ties back to Isaiah Bradley. That's the pieces he's using, the DNA he's using to extract it. But he's saying he's doing it like no other scientist has. So, and he's making it perfect. So I think these are some of the pieces that are like, you know, we've seen the superhero serum used in a couple different people, including even back to the Hulk. But now we have this kind of thing of him saying he's been able to perfect it. And that's what these flag smashers are kind of using. So I'm really curious what we're going to see in the future with what does that perfect, you know, serum really mean, right? And so
you think John Walker's going to get it and be the baddie?
Yeah, I would definitely think at some point he's getting it, if he hasn't already had it, right? Like maybe he hasn't. Maybe he's just incredible. Like,
man,
could be like
can't whip a
Abomination.
shield around like that if you're not a super soldier.
But if he doesn't have it, I think he will. And I think that the interesting part about it is if you go back to the first Captain America, they mention when you get this serum, it takes whatever's there and enhances it, which is why the Red Skull is super evil and Steve Rogers is so good, because it just enhanced what he has. So if it is that he gets it, I mean, it probably these shades of gray that we're seeing with him probably get, you know, enhanced and become the.
I'm looking at, I've got Twitter up, and comicbook.com just put a tweet out that says, Falcon and Winter Soldier star Sebastian Stan says fans keep trying to activate the Winter Soldier around him.
Yeah, he was interviewed and he was saying that. So like it came from, so Sam got interviewed, maybe it was on Hot Ones or something like that, but he was asking like, what do fans do when they're around you? And he said, they always say on your left. Every time I'm walking around, they say on your left. And then they asked the same question to Sebastian Stan. He's like, they're always trying to activate me.
A friend of mine, she met Anthony Mackie at a bar in Atlanta, but she's like kind of like my girlfriend. She just doesn't really know celebrities. I think Brandon's
You're muted, Brandon. You're muted.
You got something?
Do you mean Sam?
What do you
Say
mean?
his real name.
What? Yeah,
Britt
no, I'm
called him
talking about the
Sam.
actor.
Yeah,
Sam was being interviewed.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Anthony Mackie was being.
Hey, Mac.
interviewed. Yeah,
But my friend met him, and she had no
I'll
idea
see
who
myself
he was.
out.
Yeah, that's way better. But yeah, she met him. She was at this bar, and she was like looking like, I guess there was some event going on, and everybody working there was like kind of distracted, and she's like looking for like a drink menu or something, and Anthony Mackie's there at this event, and he's like, hey, can I help you with something? And she just thought that he worked there, and she's like, yeah, can I get a drink menu? And he was like kind of caught off guard, like she didn't know who he was, I guess. So he was like, see what I can do, and he just like walked behind the bar and was like digging around, like found the menu and gave it to her. She's like, oh, thanks. He's like, yep, anytime.
yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. He did. He also said he gets like out of like every fourth or something person that walks up to him, they call him Don Cheadle instead of Anthony.
That's awesome. Didn't Chris, which I don't know if you told Britt this, you were an extra on, weren't you an extra on one of the Captain America movies or something?
Civil War, yeah.
Civil War, yeah. So he was, what was it, the funeral
Yeah,
thing,
so I was in
what?
the Peggy Carter funeral scene. So I think it was like the first Sharon Carter introduction scene was that one, but
So Britt, he's kind of a big deal. So
I was in Black Panther too.
Yeah, he was in an Oscar winning movie.
Yeah,
or nominated movie.
Are you doing them with is it Anthony from Crane does that as well?
No, I had just seen something random online. It was like, "Do you want to be in like a Marvel movie as an extra?" And I was like, "I bet I have the time for that."
He got
out.
He got offered to be the stand-in for Jeremy Renner on the Hawkeye series full time.
They like actually called me up and asked, and I was like, "I have like a real job that I really am wondering why I do that now."
It's like, is it paid? No.
It was like a really long thing, and then they like messaged me a few more times about it after that, but. Yeah, no good deal.
Brandon, you may be able to answer this. Does Anthony do that too? Right? Is that who I'm thinking of?
I don't know.
That was like in from Crane. Isn't that his name? Maybe that's not his name.
Does he do Snyder's Jesus picture?
No. Does the does like
we're talking about Chris's extra.
Yeah, doing extra work. Wasn't he like?
Well, sorry, you
jump in.
He pulled up the question, and I thought we were addressing the question. Sorry.
Oh no.
No. We're
does
talking
he
about
do extra work? I don't know.
Yeah, when he like in.
He probably does because he's a musician, so he probably does that on the side. Oh no, you're talking about Daniel. Daniel does it. Yeah.
And he was in Captain America: Civil War too, wasn't
he? Maybe
in the funeral
like,
scene.
Maybe we hung out, got lunch together,
right next to each other.
No, I don't think he was in that. I think he was
Chris,
in the.
You kind of look like him, actually.
I could be his extra.
I think he was in the Fast and Furious funeral scene. Actually, not.
Oh, maybe that was it.
Yeah. But no, Chris is being humble about it. He's been in an Academy Award nominated movie.
All right, we already talked about this, Brandon.
You did again, though.
Sorry.
You just got to make sure. Is your name on IMDb?
I'm in there too, according to Chris, because he's typing my name at the computer. He's at. Did you say that?
Yeah,
I didn't.
I was Brandon Duncan.
Just typing Brandon's name over and over, hoping like maybe if I made it, then Brandon would like zoom in and see his name.
Yeah,
it didn't happen. You don't see me typing.
Yeah,
you see half of Chris's body as he dives behind the desk, though.
No, you see me pull a gun. I jump up. I
must have missed that.
Watch it again.
No,
I haven't seen it.
So we got a lot going on with Madripoor, kind of going through that, introducing a lot of different characters, a lot of different potential side stories as we're going through. And then, beyond that, we see these guys kind of going from there once the lab explodes to kind of start tracking down those Hydra agents. And so that kind of gets into the ending of episode 3 with Ayo from Black Panther showing up. And so this is the same bodyguard we saw from a Civil War. Again, spoilers, Brandon. From Civil War that was with...
I don't even know who that is. So.
I'm telling you. It's the bodyguard that was with... why am I drawing a blank now? With the Black Panther during Civil War.
I think that's who I pulled the gun on.
And she like bucks up to Black Widow, I believe, in the scene. So again,
is she Michonne in The Walking Dead?
I think so. I think.
Is that who it is? Okay.
So
gotcha.
So last couple seconds, we see another big cameo. I'm really curious. So this is the ending scenes of all 3 episodes have had a cameo. So, the first one we had the new, well, like maybe not necessarily a full cameo, right? But the first one, the ending scene, we had Captain America. The second one, we had Zemo. The third one, we have Ayo. So, like, again, a big character coming in the last few seconds that are potentially going to push us in one way or another. And with her, you can tell she's after Zemo because Zemo killed King T'Challa. And so, again, she's still wanting to take care of that. So before I get into kind of a little bit of my theory crafting, I'm not going to go too big on this show.
Oh,
here's the thing. I don't want to go into this show and where I think the show will go, but I do want to talk about a couple things. And we already talked about one with Wolverine kind of being maybe where they could go with the universe over the next couple of years, based on what we're seeing here. But again, we talked about it at the beginning, what your initial thoughts were, but now at the end of kind of episode 3, do you think the next couple episodes, are you hoping the next couple episodes get more action packed? Do you want more story? Like, where would you want the next 3 episodes to go to get you guys kind of wherever you're at, whether that's a 4, a 5, a 3, to get you up to like a 7 with the series? What do you want to see in the next 3 episodes now that we're halfway through the series? And so I'll start with you, Ryan, because it looks like you're thinking over there.
Yeah, I'm always thinking.
He's thinking about Justice League.
I wonder where that anti-life equation is.
Anti-life is found, son.
I will say, and it's no surprise, I will say that I want as much Winter Soldier content, Bucky's content as possible. If I was talking about the things that I've appreciated in the show so far, it's been the action, with the exception of the truck scene. I loved the bar scene where he was basically pretending to be the Winter Soldier still. That fight was cool. And my favorite scene in the entire show so far was the Winter Soldier flashback in episode 1. I think it starts with him like punching through the wall kind of deal. So I'd love to see more like flashback stuff with Bucky. Like that would be something that I'd be interested in seeing, is like exploring like any like PTSD type stuff that he's still trying to work through. But yeah, so probably Winter Soldier stuff and more cool action sequences.
How about you, Brandon? What could make you want to watch?
What could make you watch episode? Yeah,
and continue to watch it. And
is Ben Affleck coming in?
I was going to say you can't bring in Batman and those guys into the series.
Well, like I said, I'm not like disliking it. It's just a matter of motivate. Like I was saying, I couldn't get motivated to watch it, and it had nothing to do with the show in particular. It was just I'm so invested on the other side of the pond in one specific fandom that I was like, nothing compares. I said this on our pod. I said this on Dave's pod. It's like, or show. I keep saying pod. I know Ryan hates it when I say pod. But the nothing compares to my lovely, lovely Zack Snyder's Justice League, and it's never going to unless they continue making movies. So what do I want it to do? I just want it to be entertaining. I mean, and it is so far. It's entertaining. I'm not expecting. I don't expect any movie outside of a few different things, like as far as like a movie that's going to move me in the superhero genre. They're not going to be able to compete with that side, with the Snyder stuff. It's just not going to happen, and that's okay. I'm not expecting it to. I just want it to be good. I want it to be well made, and so far it's competently made. It's not like above and beyond. It's not on the level of their own like flagship series or shows. So as long as it can deliver on good action, good story, and I kind of tuned out for your episode 3, so I don't really know what to expect from that one. So we'll see. We'll see. I'll check back in next week and I'll let you know, because I will make a better effort to finish those
and watch that episode.
Yeah, so I have 2 to watch by next week.
Cool. How about you, Chris? What do you want to see more of in the series? What's going to keep you kind of engaged and enjoying it?
Yeah, I mean, I think they'd wrap things up with the Flag Smashers, because I just don't care about that plot line. We've kind of already seen it before, and it's not really like compelling. So if they just kind of like get that over with, I'd like to see more with like U.S. Agent, maybe really kind of turning all the way. Right now he's a little bit of a jerk, but if we turn him into a real villain, and maybe we see a bit more with serum being used on him, or if it already was used, and maybe some lovely Bucky fights using the arm, that'd be cool. That's what I would want to see, is
and then replace his arm with the old arm and have him grow some hair. Then we'll be
we're good.
Rock and roll.
When I don't know if you noticed this, Ryan, kind of going to that like Bucky fight. I think they're definitely going to have to give him more serum to make that fight actually work, because if you noticed on the truck, when Bucky caught the shield, he caught it with his normal hand, whereas with Captain America, he had to catch it with the robot, with the android hand. So like, they're already kind of showing you like he's not at the same level that Cap was at.
Yeah.
So maybe that is what we see as we go.
Yeah.
But yeah. So kind of like, again, I'm kind of in the same boat there. Like I think the episodes are good for what they are, as long as you're just looking at it being backstory filler. We're seeing some cool stuff. I've loved kind of seeing some of the cameos and different pieces in there, and I'm really looking forward to it to kind of turn the corner. And I'm really hoping episode 4 does that. I imagine episode 5 and 6 will be really good, just like we saw with WandaVision, kind of getting to the levels, because there's a lot of story they're giving us. But, you know, there's some other things. And so I just want to touch on 2 specific things that I've seen out there in the fandom.
Y'all hear that?
He's gonna lift the sweater up and smell it in a second.
So we've got 2 things, and one we have 3, but one of them we already talked about, kind of the nod to Wolverine in there. There's another potential nod to Doctor Doom. So you know, Zemo mentions that Sokovia got cannibalized by countries that were around them, which is Eastern Europe, kind of in there. So there's the potential that he was referring to Latveria essentially cannibalizing, eating Sokovia as it was falling. And that could have been a reference, right? I don't think we're going to get Doctor Doom in the series or anything like that, but it could be something that pays off, you know, a year or 2 from now. But the other one, I kind of want to get your opinions on, because we're starting to see this. The new one that we're seeing is the Young Avengers. So we mentioned it on WandaVision. We had Speed and Wiccan, who are members of the Young Avengers, which means probably going to see them back at some point. We already know that they're filming on the new Hawkeye series to bring in Kate Bishop as Hawkeye to kind of take over the mantle from Clint. In this series, we got Eli Bradley. So the grandson that we saw with Isaiah is actually Eli Bradley, who becomes the Patriot. So it's kind of like the Captain America of the new or the Young Avengers. And so we essentially, if you look at that, that's 4 characters we've already seen. We've had other, just like the Avengers, right? People sub in and sub out. There's Cassie Lang, so Ant-Man's daughter, has been in there before. We've had Iron Lad, and there's still speculation that Iron Lad could be the kid from Iron Man 3, who was the person at Iron Man's funeral, that kind of unknown person. So, you know, what do you guys think of the fact that maybe this is how they're going to set up kind of a Disney Plus series eventually, with Young Avengers kind of being what they work towards, like they did with Defenders, like they did with Avengers in the movies? Is that something you think would work better on Disney Plus rather than, you know, full blown movie?
It's an interesting thought. I like it's weird because they have to balance the whole streaming service versus theatrical release thing, and I feel like it's one of those, like with Infinity War and Endgame, like what they did, the build up that they had with the movies and everything, it was all perfect. And then you have to evolve in some way. They're trying to build the streaming service. Maybe that is a way for them to introduce young characters, or treat the Disney Plus as kind of a beta test for whether people like these young characters that they're doing, and then they can kind of move them into theatrical roles. But yeah, I haven't thought about that. That would be interesting.
What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, like Ryan said, I think it could be interesting, but I have zero investment or interest in like any of the potential characters or seeing them together. I mean, if anybody's going to make something out of nothing, I think it's Marvel. Like Guardians of the Galaxy is a great example of a team of characters that nobody knew. You know, there's plenty of people, and this still happens now, that they love to go online and like read a Wikipedia page or watch somebody's YouTube video and pretend that they know all of these characters because they've existed in the comics. But how many people knew who Agatha Harkness was? Like, I don't care. Like, I read comic books for years and I never once read an issue with
Not
her.
me.
Like, I had to look it up. So with these obscure characters, I mean, I don't think you're going to have anybody who's looking forward to them because they don't know about them, or they're lying if they say they do. But with Guardians of the Galaxy,
Iron Man is a prime example of that. Like,
Iron Man was pretty big in the comics.
He was like a B-level character in comparison to the rest of the Marvel characters.
For sure.
So, yeah, but these guys are like
way off the radar.
Like,
well, you were just talking about like making something out of nothing. I don't mean in that to as far of an extent, but they were able to make one of their more tertiary characters into like their de facto, like this is the face of our universe. Just because of,
which is surprising that, like, I mean, you look at that and you would have imagined Captain America would have been the face of I mean, he's the face of Avengers, but he isn't like the favorite character for a lot of people in the Avengers in general. Right? Like, there's so many more people that like Thor or like Iron Man or whatever over Captain America, but he was the only one that was like, I don't know, to me was more of a B+, A- character when you look at like the levels of it. But
true.
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of where I'm at right now with the series and kind of looking forward. I would love to see all of that come together. I'm just curious, like, with that, where does that live? And I'm also curious, and I kind of want to pose this question just in comic books in general, right? Like, I feel like with all of us, we grew up with the kind of the old school characters. So we grew up with the Superman, the Batman, Spider-Man, X-Men, the original X-Men team, things like that. So it's like, I'm curious, the kids that are just now coming into this, right? The younger kids growing up, or the people that are maybe, 10, 15 years younger than us. Do you think that those are the people that are looking forward to a Batman Beyond type situation in the DC?
I'm looking for Batman Beyond.
I'm looking for
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
the people that are looking for those kind of like.
Yeah, I think it depends on what's animated right now and what's on like Cartoon Network or whatever the big
that's true,
kids for cartoons. Like, I think that's where it comes from. I think younger kids now know characters like Blue Beetle from Young Justice, whereas a little bit more of our generation probably didn't really know Blue Beetle that well.
Right.
So I think it's just kind of what you see in those properties.
Yeah, a lot of the foundation for me was the animated series, like Batman animated series, Superman animated series, and that kind of Spider-Man animated series. So I can see what you're saying there, Chris.
So and that's my curiosity, like with kind of, and I guess that's where my head is with like Young Justice, right? Like, I remember turning on some of the cartoons that are on nowadays, and like Ant-Man's a giant character, but like when we were growing up, like Ant-Man was not really ever mentioned.
Right.
And so like even
great show, by the way, Young Justice. Watch it if you haven't.
And so in the DC, it's the same way, right? Young Justice and some of the other shows that are maybe a little after our prime time. And again, a lot of us have gone back and watched some of those series, but I'm really interested to see over the next 10 years what DC and Marvel does and what properties they start picking up based on what the kids are watching. So like, again, when Ultron came out, Ultron was a big character on the cartoons that were going on right at that moment. And so, whereas a lot of people didn't know Ultron if he came from old school stuff. So,
yeah. Cool, man. Thank you for putting all those notes together. It's definitely better than I would have done.
Brandon could have done pretty well, though.
Yeah, maybe Brandon should host episode 4.
Could be entertaining for a moment.
Yeah. But yeah, man. So Britt, definitely plug your Twitch stream and everything so everybody knows. Find you.
Yeah, so I stream Mondays, Wednesdays, play some mobile games, Disney-related games at the moment, playing some other stuff as it comes out. But you can find me on Twitch/DefaultDan, so twitch.tv/DefaultDan. Got a YouTube that I occasionally put videos up of gameplays and stuff with those games. Same thing, youtube.com/DefaultDan, if you want to check that out. But I enjoy hanging out with you guys, talking about the Marvel stuff, and I hope you're doing.
I enjoy it too.
As well. So, you can find me here when they want me here.
You need to send me the link to it too, and we'll start posting them in the description for the videos too. So, but yeah, if you dug this conversation, if you love talking about DC stuff, Marvel stuff, anything geek, definitely check us out on Twitter at CAPECAST Show. And if you're watching right now and you haven't hit the subscribe button, hit the subscribe button, please. And we
smash it to dust.
He said, please.
That's right. Yeah, Chris is right. I said, please.
Southern boy.
We will be back actually middle of this week time, reviewing part 2 of Zack Snyder's Justice League, part of our I guess we're doing 7-part series epilogue separate from the 6 parts. But yeah, that'll be up midweek, so keep an eye out for that. But other than that, guys, I think that's about it. Time to sign off. Chris, Britt, Brandon, it's been fun.
Yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. We appreciate it.
Brandon, give us a little outro music.
I don't have it queued up, so
oh, it's okay.
Sorry.
I got it.
All right.